that mean?
No,
Is
it's
that-
changed.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order.
Yes.
So notice of this meeting was given in accordance with the provisions of bylaw 0164B of the Riverside Local Board of Education, which was adopted in accordance with section 1.450 of the ORC and the Ohio Administrative Procedures Act. Can you take roll for us, please?
I certainly can. I'm just so used to using technology and not paper. I'm very techy, as you guys are aware. Mr. Audino,
Here.
Mrs. Grassi,
Here.
Ms. Brewster,
Here.
Mrs. Krenensky,
Here.
and Mr. Vyers.
Here.
Thank you. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public comment during the meeting in the public participation section on the agenda. I make a motion to approve the January 22nd, 2026 board minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Ms. Krenensky,
Aye.
Ms. Grassi,
Aye.
Mrs. Grassi,
Aye.
Mr. Audino,
Aye.
Ms. Brewster,
Aye.
and Mr. Vyers.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
And that brings us to our special reports.
Okay, I only have one tonight. We were gonna take a tour of CTX, but we had a lot of deliveries, so we had to move the meeting. So we will do that at our next meeting, hopefully. So kind of wanted to talk a little bit about property taxes. There's been a lot of discussion about property taxes. Wanted to first and foremost highlight that we did have a presentation last night. We hosted a presentation and panel discussion with Lake County Treasurer Michael Zern and then Painesville Township Trustee Chuck Hillier. So it was a combination with the school district, the county, and then the Painesville Township. We had pretty good attendance. I think they said about 60, maybe a little bit more were there. The presentation was neutral, really presented and addressed the recent proposed changes to property tax system, as well as we discussed how local government agencies and entities are currently supported by property tax, really what goes behind that property tax bill, and we also discussed how local services could be significantly changed due to property tax. At this point, kind of piggybacking off of that, I do think it's important to kind of share really the school district perspective from property taxes and why we are where we are, especially because I know we're all excited that tonight is the financial forecast presentation as well.
So excited.
So kind of piggybacking on that, off of
Stay
that a
calm
little bit,
when it happens, stay calm.
really to kind of talk about where we are and kind of why schools continue to go back to the levies for property taxes and just some trends that are there and why they're there. First, a little history. In 1991, homeowners and farmers paid about 47%, so residential and agriculture was about 47% of the school property taxes. Businesses made up the rest, so 53% on average throughout the state. In 2023, because of legislation, that number has shifted to where residential and agricultural make up 70% of the property taxes that we collect. What changed in there is simply legislation. So state legislation has changed to eliminate the tangible personal property tax. That was in 2005. They did kind of roll that back a little bit to try to hold us harmless, as they would say. But we still feel the pinch. And the state used to cover a 12.5 rollback on the property tax bill. And for those levies that are still continuous and still voted in, they still do. But for any new levy, they do not. So any new levy is the full freight. And then finally, rising home values also increased to higher bills for families, not only from the inside millage, which we'll get into a little bit. I'm not going to go a deep dive into that. I encourage people to go out and watch the presentation. It's on our YouTube from Dr. Zern. He gets really into the weeds a lot, but it's a good presentation. But rising home values equals higher bills on the property taxes. They are based off the system. Really kind of what it, so the shared challenge, and this is true. We know families are struggling to pay bills. We know that that's the case as property values have skyrocketed recently in an unprecedented rise. Some of those bills went up. Now they didn't all go up, and I think that's something to say. The average property tax rate went up 30%, but there were some county homes and some houses and some residents in the district saw a decrease in their property tax. Even though, if you live in Concord, there were some homes in Concord that saw a decrease in property tax, even though Concord passed an additional 3.9 mil levy. And some residents still saw their taxes decrease. So it depends on where your schools are valued or where your homes are valued, and it's a holistic. So again, one of the solutions that are out there is this amendment to get rid of property tax. That seems like a simple solution for a very complex issue. Because property taxes, just to get into how much it's worth, is incredibly complex. There's a 100-some page book that deals with some of it that's sitting on in front of you that deals with school finance. And it's still, when you read that, you have to read some of those sections 2-3 times. One, to stay awake, but then also really to truly grasp the concepts behind it. So we also know that schools, we're facing the same, and we face the same inflation. It costs us more to turn the lights on. It costs us more to run the buses. It costs us more for healthcare. We've had those discussions, and we're struggling to maintain programs, to keep our safe facilities. We have to pay. We have costs now that we didn't have 20 years ago. We didn't have school resource officers and school safety officers in every school. We do now. We have a great partnership with Lake County, but those officers aren't free. So that's something that is an increased cost that didn't exist prior, but it's something that I would say that our community values. And then also, we also know that the state needs to be a part of the solution and not just say, hey, work it out. We've got some ways to make it work, but then go figure it out on your way, because that's not working either. So what's at stake? And really and truly, and as you'll see tonight in the financial forecast, I don't want to steal any of Dr. Thompson's thunder, but what's at stake really is we are a people industry. So when we go to make significant changes, and people are impacted, and so we have to reduce positions at times. We have to reduce programs. Do we reduce some of the things that we cherish in safe schools, and what does that look like? From a community standpoint, more than just the schools. Now, schools do take about 60% of the property taxes, but from a community standpoint, police, fire, EMS, libraries, and parks. And some of the partnerships that we have, we're fortunate to have Parkside right across the street from Skoke Meadow, and go and walk in Skoke Meadow in a clean, and Skoke, it's a beautiful park. Property taxes, to not have that clean will impact our student experience. When we had the issue last Halloween at Riverview, and we hit that red button, went into lockdown, everybody came from all those emergency services and all that, and they were there before I was there, and I drove pretty fast. You could ask Nick. He rode with me. He'll never ride with me again. We were there quickly, but before we were there, we had we had the sheriff's office there, we had police from Mentor, we had police from Kirtland, we had fire and EMS that all came. All of those are funded by property tax. If that goes away, what happens to those services? One of the things, I said this last night, I wake up every morning and there's over 4,000 students in our district, and I hope at the end of the night the same amount of students are in our district as they are when they wake up. We don't have to deal with the tragedy. And I've had to once every year, and it's an awful experience, and I can tell you, and I know Dr. Thompson has as well, and it's just something you don't want to go through and live. It's the nature of it, but the more we can do to keep our students safe, we need to do it, and I think that's a really important thing. And I think we can't continue to not have reform for our families to pay more, our local services risk being cut. That's not the answer from that aspect. So how do we move forward together? We know we have to be a part of the change, but we need to be a part of the solution too. We need a seat at the table, and we need to be balanced. This idea of, hey, let's just cut it and let the state figure it out. When the state figured out fair funding in terms of equitable facilities, that's not working out for us very well right now. We're sitting in we have needs that we haven't had issued. We have needs greater than some other schools that have had the money's given to them at a greater rate because of where we're sitting. So I think that that's not necessarily, not that I don't appreciate what the state does, but I don't know if I want to put all our apples in that basket with them figured out. And I would love to have a seat at the table to kind of make some meaningful, impactful change. So in lieu of this amendment that's coming on, that they're trying to put on the ballot, there has been some impactful legislation. Some that has some sense to it, some that may have been a little bit of a knee-jerk, I think is a fair response to it. Locally, that came out of the state budget, what the state budget said is the county can go ahead and double and piggyback on the homestead and owner-occupied tax. They can go ahead and do that. And of the 80-some counties in Ohio, 4 chose to do that. For this tax year, Lake County is one of them. We know that Dr. Zurn presented last night that that's about an average savings for your average residents, about $128 annually. So a little over $10 a month you save on your property tax. From a district standpoint, we were faced with a $1.3 million impact immediately, or actually $750,000 this year because it's the opposite of our tax year. But it's $1.3 million we didn't expect. We have always been proactive in looking at where we cut over $1 million in last year in preparation for deficit spending, so we could keep our levy cycle off as much as we can. In a 3-councilman vote, we lost $1.3 million coming up that we didn't project and we didn't forecast. And again, not to steal any thunder, but
You are.
I'm sorry, but that does impact a lot of what we do. House Bill 129 came out, and it required a lot of fixed sum levies to be included in the 20 mil floor. Every school district has to generate 20 mils of property tax in order to get state funding. So, but what some districts would do, and we had one, they would put on emergency levies, so they would stay at the 20 mil floor, because as inflation rises, all of those 20 mils rise with the rate of inflation. So this last appraisal, as all of those values went up 20%, if you're at the floor, your income from those property taxes rises 20%. In this case, for us, we were above the 20 mil floor in our effective millage. Now, granted, we voted 55 mils. Right now we're collecting 20, but we were collecting about 25 mils or so. As the appraisal rise, we got to the floor, so that's why we saw maybe a little bit of a bump. 129 says, no, that's not how it's going to work. A levy's a levy, and it counts. So whatever you do. It's impacted a number of districts more than us. For us, we are looking at about a $750,000 impact, but there is some hold harmless language that is coming from, they're funding that hold harmless language by eliminating the holiday sales tax in August. So that holiday sales tax reprieve that helps our families out when they go out school supply shopping, that is being eliminated this year to help fund some of this rollback language for schools. So that's where they pulled that from.
There you go.
Yeah, it goes back to who it impacts. But after the impact of the 2 years of hold harmless, they do a look back. So if your tax bill went up because of this, they'll credit you back, and you'll see a credit on your tax bill. But then you can lose a significant amount of funds that way. We again, $750,000 for us. That's a lot of money, but that's not necessarily a deal breaker. Like I said, we cut $1 million. We can cut our way through some of that and reduce. For other districts, it was a very significant hit, and you may have seen them in the papers recently as well. So they are reacting to that. House Bill 186 is the inflation cap to inside millage. So inside millage is basically you could have 10 mils of unvoted levy, and they're dispersed amongst all of the different public entities. We collect about 4 mils of inside millage, and when inflation rises on that, we get whatever the inflationary rate is. So if it went up 30%, we would get a 30% bump in those collected mills. Not a lot of money, but it's pretty. For us, it was about, we were looking at about $3 million between 186 getting to the floor and then this inside millage. Now that caps it to inflationary rate, so it caps it at 2.5% to 3%, and that's all you can gain. Even if your house value goes up, we would only see a 2.5% to 3% gain. That's kind of some commonsensical language. Okay, we can do this. It makes sense. We can predict that. And for us, it really is about predictions. What can we predict out? What can we see on the way out? We can kind of do that. We understand that to that point. House Bill 309 expands the control of the local budget commission, and Dr. Thompson, Mr. Patrizzi, and I got to experience this Monday, I believe. So Monday we got to sit down with the local budget commission, which is the treasurer, the auditor, and the prosecutor, and present our school budget to them to kind of show them where we are, where our finances were, how many mills we're collecting, and all that. And they vote on those budgets. If they see it in the abundance of an excess, they can say we're not collecting on one levy this year, or we're not collecting on this, or we're not doing that. In this case, this year, ours was voted through. We showed, we prepared the budget. We said this is what we're spending our monies on. We don't have a huge cash access or carryover, and in fact, our future is looking, and all of Lake County was kind of in the same. I think Fairport we missed Fairport. And I think they have a large carryover for a while, but we did see some of what that is, and so that's 309. That'll be an annual thing now. Geauga County has done it for a long time, and so the Geauga County Budget Commission, they would go and present, and Geauga County Budget Commission would take some levies away. In fact, they stopped collecting on the West G emergency levy last year, or 2 years ago, I believe it was. Yeah, it's 2 years ago. So that precedent has been set. This now makes it a countywide thing. And the last one is House Bill 335, which again limits the inside millage rates to just just inflation. So for all of that. So that's where we're at with the language. To look a little bit about kind of what we see, all the myth versus fact, and kind of where we're at with that. The myth is always, schools are flush. We mismanage money. We just spend. We're administration heavy. We spend. We waste dollars. The reality of it, especially at Riverside, is we've consolidated our services. We've shared resources, and we've reduced costs. The bar graph up there, which I know is not really well seen on a PowerPoint screen and all that, that is the pure pupil expenditure for every single district in Lake and Geauga County. The highlighted area at the bottom is Riverside. We are the second lowest pure pupil spend for Lake and Geauga County. Madison is the lowest, and Madison is they're in fiscal watch or fiscal emergency. They're continuing to have to. They're in watch. They're continuing to have to make some pretty decent cuts. The average, I want to say, is about $17,000 per student. We come in about $16,000 per student from that. So that's kind of where our spend is. And again, we want to be good stewards of taxpayers' dollars. That's what we always continue to try to do along the way, and that's why we make some of the proactive adjustments that we do. So then the other part is, I know this is kind of old business, so I'm going to go into old business a little bit and talk about vouchers. There's been a lot of topics about Ed Choice and vouchers and what that is. Just to kind of set the stage as to what this looks like and where that money comes from, because I think financing from the state is a big thing. So Ed Choice expansion saw explosive growth since 2023. The total spending last year on all 5 of the voucher programs, now there are different vouchers. There's the Autism Scholarship, there's Ed Choice, but that total spend from the state is $1 billion, is over $1 billion for last year. Voucher funds are taken from the state line item, so they're not taken from local property tax, but they're taken from the money that the state would provide to us through the formula funding, which is a different route, but it's still money that we can have. The Ohio Constitution, just for some context here and some legal context, in Article 6, Section 2 mandates the General Assembly to secure a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state. It says, and it talks about a thorough and efficient system, not systems, of common schools throughout the state. It requires using taxation and school trust funds while prohibiting religious or sectarian control over public school funds. There's been a group that has posed a challenge to the voucher system based on the Constitution, saying that it is unconstitutional. They have 5 main points in their argument. The first one is it creates an unconstitutional separate school systems. So now there's 2 systems and not one, and it clearly when I said that the language specifically calls for a system. Public school funding is reduced because of the voucher program, that they're not funding them equally. The lawsuit asserts lawmakers have failed to adequately fund public schools. Again, that comes back to the DeRolf decision, and that public schools are not funded equitably. They did have, or not funded fairly, they did have a system in place to work through that, but that got defunded in the last budget cycle, or adjusted. Vouchers make segregation in public schools worse by allowing selection. And then finally, that public funds are illegally going to sectarian private schools, because religious schools can take vouchers, it is against what the Ohio Constitution says. This went to court in Franklin County, and in the ruling, there was a Judge Page found that the Ohio's Ed Choice program, which does violate the Constitution on 3 of the 5 cases. The first is that it creates more than one system. So that first one, it fails to secure a thorough and efficient system because of the funding issues. And then finally, it does give money to religious or other sects shall ever have an exclusive right to control of any or part of the school funds that cause in that clause. So that separation of church and state, the voucher system does find that to be unconstitutional. Where we're at with that, just because it was ruled does not mean that it stopped. There actually was a stay on the ruling, and an attorney, Ohio's Attorney General Yost, appealed the voucher decision, and it's going to the 10th District Court of Appeals. Whatever that ruling is going to be appealed by either the Ed Choice or by either the vouchers people or Yost. One of them, it's going to make it to the Supreme Court. We know that. It's just they're going to rule on it. It has to go through the cycle. So it's going to rule on it on the 10th. And then the 10th District will make it to the Supreme Court, and we'll go from there. Some recent changes. Representative Jamie Callender recently introduced in February House Bill 671, which the initial language in it is going to withhold all school funds, so formula funding, not tax dollars, but it would withhold all school formula funds for any district that's involved in legal action against the state and the voucher program. As you can imagine, there was some pushback. Because we do have a right to legally challenge. Callender then came back and he said, I don't know if he's actually amended the wording or if he's going to amend the wording, but he said he's going to amend the wording to specifically say the only money from the formula, they will withhold the formula money that's being spent on the lawsuit specifically. So I think it's $2 a student, so that would be for us, if we were to participate at $8,000 to $9,000, we would see less with that. And for some larger districts that are involved, it's a significant amount, especially if they are state funded. To kind of tie it in specifically to the local impact for vouchers, and this is from 24-25, but really for where the local districts are in Lake County and kind of where our students go. These are schools that accept vouchers. All schools do not have to accept vouchers. There are some schools that are not part of the Ed Choice program, they choose not to. But for those schools who tend to choose those, the vouchers that they get in Lake County, 2,451 students participated. They're not all Riverside students, so it's not that they're not all ours. For $12 million of funding to go there, or a little under $5,000 a student that goes to those schools to support a student on the voucher program. For our 4,000 students that we get $8 million. So we get about $2,000 per student. If we had the same amount funded, so if we had $5,000 a student, Dr. Thompson's 4-year forecast, our financial forecast, he may do backflips off the table. So to really
I could too.
Yeah. So to really look at where that is, it's a significant change and a significant. The other part to some of these schools.
It was $20,891,640. I'll just tell you what that number was. Yeah.
If we got the same amount.
Yes.
Yeah.
$20,891,640. That's crazy.
I mean, I would take 20 million.
Yeah, I'll take 20 million.
Yeah. And that's, so to look at.
And just to point out again, that's state funding.
That is state funding, that's not property tax, that is state funding, so and so to that point, for our ask for property tax would be significantly less. And it's not that, I'm not trying to say that we want these schools to close, if these schools close and all these, we wouldn't have a place for the students, there's value in choice. I want Riverside to be the #1 choice for all students who live in the district. And I want that to be the case. And I know that some people choose schools for other reasons, and that absolutely fits. But the playing field to some kind needs to be level, and it's not. And I think that's the issue we have, where this voucher system has been expanded so much that families who could normally afford it and had that in their plan already are still in the school system. And actually, when they expanded the voucher system, we didn't see a huge influx in students leaving for us to do it. We did see an influx in students taking the voucher, but we didn't see an influx in students withdrawing to go to the schools that take the voucher. But we did see a lot more vouchers being claimed, which does, from a formula standpoint, take from our back end. And I think that's something to kind of really have that talk about. It's a challenge, and I know just to kind of feed where that is, and that's
And just to clarify what he said, if it seemed a bit confusing, what he said was, what we have are kids that have never stepped foot in a public school. They could be wealthy kids on top of that, and now they're taking the voucher. So these are kids that have never gone to a public school, and their parents, there is no cap. You get the entire voucher at 400% above the poverty line. And it starts to ratchet down, but you could be a millionaire and take money from public schools.
And these families still do pay property taxes that go to
Sure,
the
of
schools,
course,
and that's.
of course.
But in fairness too, the schools are still required to provide them with services. We still bus those students. We still have to provide special education services if they require them. So we still have services that we have to provide to those families who live here. In addition to the voucher funding going to them.
So technically, if you included all of that, the per pupil from the private school technically is somewhat higher if you account for the money we pay to busing and things of that nature.
I can't put a number to that, but yes.
Right, but it's,
Yes,
Are
we
you talking
technically-
about their increase in, some of the private schools increase their tuition as a result? Is that
Well,
what you're-
some of the private schools have increased their tuition to the level of the voucher or to just below, or the level of the minimum voucher, to that standpoint. So some of them have done that. But it's also, if we cannot bus them because the board decided, we declare transportation impractical, we still pay them. Because we can't bus them, so we give them almost a rebate back to say, we don't have this, we can't do it. So we do payment in lieu of, and those come out, the board votes on that list around, I want to say it's June or July, I think we get that in there, to get those. But so, Mr. Andre goes and looks and goes from there. And in a time when it's really hard to find, and it's not that we don't want to bus them, but to find the people to drive the bus to take the kids is bus drivers are, there's a shortage, we know that. So it's a challenge to do that, and we still have to provide them. So.
What is, so I understand the, like Notre Dame and NDCL and all that, but what about like other schools in the county or in the state? Like we get, because is it 67 or 76% of our budget comes from property taxes? It's one of the.
It's over 60%. It's like 60. I have it on. You'll see
It's in
it.
there?
So
You'll
if
see
you
it, but
count
there's
the-
two ways to
yeah,
look at that.
If you
and I'm
count the
gonna show
property
both.
tax
Okay.
and the rollback monies we get from the property tax, so that's state money, but it's voted, it's 80%.
Okay.
So if you count the total, then 12.5%, so take that from 80 to 68.
And again, just so people understand, the reason we are going to property taxes for the majority of our budget is because, again, our funds are cut based on how wealthy we are as a district.
We have been on the guarantee for a significant number of years, and it does not necessarily see a inflationary bump. It doesn't. It's kind of here's the number you get from the state funding at all times, and this is kind of so. It's not necessarily impacted by our enrollment as part of that. When they get to the Fair School Funding Act, if they ever were to, fund both the inputs and the outputs 100%, we may have seen a dip from that guarantee, but that would be the expectation. When they put that study together, this is the expectation, the local share versus the state share, so that it's equal based on the wealth of the district and all of that kind of combined. So yeah, we would, and then at that point, as students move in and out, enrollment makes a difference.
And to put that in a number, quantify that, the state average per pupil in state funding across the entire state is $6,800 and change, and we bring in about $3,200 in state funding, and it's That's because they look at our wealth, our property value, and in the formula, that decreases your state aid.
And then there's other schools that are bringing in 10,000 per student or,
Yeah, they're, oh, sure,
Right.
for
Sure,
sure. Some of
Cleveland
the, you know, the less they have in property valuation, i.e. poverty, the more they're gonna receive in state funding.
And federal.
And federal funding,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah.
because I know I've seen comments where people contribute the fact that we collect so much property tax that we're mismanaging funds, and it's not the case. It's the way that,
I would go back to say we're the second lowest pure pupil
correct.
expenditure in Lake County, and we always we shift between second and third. You know, if you look at Fairport's right above us, they inched above us this year, but we're right around where Fairport is from that. But Madison and Madison's, you know, historically kind of less. But when you add, so it's Lake, but then I also added Geauga because I was like, all right, hey, let's look at Geauga County too. You know, let's do both. And wow, that's when I kind of said, okay, we're the second lowest in both. And those are my special reports for tonight.
Thank you.
Which does lead into old business.
So for old business, I know, Mr. Audino, you had a topic you wanted to speak about?
Sure, thank you. I wanted to give Dr. Bertino an opportunity to share with the room the progress made since the 2024-2025 Employee Climate Survey that was taken last year. We know that, at least in my job, my employees take a survey every year, and it's kind of like the flavor of the month for about 6 weeks, and then you never hear about it again until the next survey, when people start bringing in donuts. Not that I'm implying that happens here. But I thought it would be a good opportunity for him to be able to share with us a few things. Updates on the progress and actions taken since the survey. What updates have been communicated to the staff and faculty regarding changes made as a result of the survey. And then lastly, a timeline/goals for the 25-26 survey specific to participation percent, because that should be the driving number. The amount of employees that have taken the survey should be looked at first before you look at results. And then second, any growth that you're looking for year over year. So I'll leave it to Dr. Bertino to update us on that.
It's in one of these papers here. We're putting updates together. Got a lot. The first is in terms of the participation in the next survey. Part of our discussion kind of comes from the strategic plan as well. They will be doing a staff survey as well. And so one of the things that always concerns me is survey fatigue. So I think we use the strategic plan survey, but we give employees time during the day to take that survey. And then we will give this, the climate survey we gave at the end of last year, our intent is to give that next year during a professional development day. We have all staff, and we carve out some time for them to take that. So we talked about kind of the timing of those surveys, so where they're at. So I think the strategic plan survey now is important for our staff to kind of do that, but to give too many surveys in a row that are pretty thorough is one thing we're gonna, look at for moving forward. So I think that's the low hanging for that. That was the easy one. In terms of what we've done, kind of moving forward as to what themes came about and all of that. We did a lot of this. We worked through not only our district administration, we worked as a core team up here, and then we also worked through our district leadership team, where we broke down results. We had them look at those results individually and take a real look for what they can do not only in their buildings and what we can do district-wide. One of the things we did see as a huge red flag right off the top was the amount of classified participation in the survey and as a part of the process. So that's one thing we're going to really target this, not only through the strategic plan work with the survey, but also we're going to bring them into the room in a focus group and really have some specific focus groups for them so we can hear what they have to say as well, because their voice is incredibly important in everything moving forward. Another one that we saw too that came out was inconsistent student discipline and unclear behavior expectations. That was both from classified and certified. We've worked with our administration to identify some of the roots of what the root cause of where this looks at, what this looks like, and really worked hard to make sure that we are communicating. It comes down to some communication issues and how we communicate across the staff on student discipline processes. If something appears to not happen, There may be a reason as to why, I wrote this and something didn't happen. To have those conversations along the way as to what was found in the investigation, what came about, with staff to make sure that they understand that. And also protected classes as well. There are some protected things that come out in some of that. Behavior norms, and through our positive behavior interaction supports to step those up. Behaviors, as much as are expected, they need to be taught in some cases. I'll give you the best example. When we went this year, the board enacted a policy about electronic devices, and we said no cell phones in schools. That's a huge change for our students. And that's a big change for our adults as well. For the first week, and I only know this because we were attached to the high school, for the first week in the high school, Mr. Hall would get on the PA every morning and say, we're going to practice turning your phone off and putting it away. And the students would practice and put it away, and it was gave them a free pass. Those behaviors over time, we revert back to the norm. Our kids came off of a break. They came off of a couple of snow days where they had their phones all to them. So guess what? This morning again, he was on there reminding them to practice to turn their phones off, put them away, and to kind of get some things back. So I think after spring break, I would bet to hear him on The Voice again saying, we're going to practice putting these things away and all that, because that's a challenge for it. I mean, quite honestly, it's a challenge for not only our students, but our adults as well, because they are so having the kind of consistent processes along the way. So we've done working with some teaching the behaviors. In terms of, there was another thing that came out was lack of transparency and communication from some administrative levels. When we look at what we did with that, really working to make sure that the communications and really this starting in this calendar year, that communications are coming from our office and not other entities. So our office are making the communications out to our community, reaching out as many as we can. And Nick does a phenomenal job and continues to look at how else we can reach those people. He also started a way to kind of communicate with and a lot more staff around it than I thought, but when he started the Instagram page with families and community members to kind of get that out, that was a new undertaking this year when we went and said, hey, what do you think about learning Instagram? He goes, I'll try. But now, I mean, he's done a great job with it, so to kind of get those out there. Also talking about, I mean, I think the one thing that we'll tell you all the time is in whatever we do, we don't communicate enough. And you can never communicate too much, and it always comes out, somebody didn't know from something. We put it out as many possible ways as we can. So continue to how we communicate across what we want this to look like, what these levels look like. Having a conversation with people, the art of sitting somebody down and when they send you this really long email, say, please come see me. Let's schedule a time. Making time to meet with them is a really important thing so that they do feel, to make sure that what you're reading is exactly what they mean. Because emails, sometimes the tone isn't there. And so to have that face-to-face to say, what do you really mean when you say, things like that? I think that's a big thing. And then also our administrators have worked to host these informal kind of meet and greets with staff to just come and open office. If you have some concerns, come and talk. I know that they formed meetings with both unions to make sure that they're there as well. But to have these meetings and the all-staff meetings to really look at portrait of the Riverside Beaver and what those look like, and kind of adopting those from adult behaviors as well as our individual student behaviors and how we work those in. The next one that kind of came out, we talked a lot in the DLT determined low morale in areas where changes felt overwhelming and unsupported. And the one thing we say every year in education is the only constant is change. We're going to change like crazy. So in the district, we overall support school community morale has shown noticeable improvement. I think part of that is just kind of the synergy that we feel from the board to the administration throughout the teachers. And I think we've seen some of that, as well as just kind of the whole staff coming together in a way that we've never seen before. That was unprecedented. So I think that's we're riding some of that emotion, some of that positive emotion, kind of really getting together with our community. And I think too, looking at now really looking at how do we be proactive in our plans and communicating anticipated vacancies, transfers, to make those things really upfront. We had some issues last year where the state changed retirement at the last minute, and they changed, I think it was May. I was cutting my grass when I heard about it, so it was like May or June. When they changed retirement and made it effective immediately, knocked it down a year. So we had some vacancies created that we weren't expecting or anticipating that when we had those, we took a hard look at those and really said fiscally, we didn't want to riff, but if we could absorb this for attrition, even for a year, is the savings, are the savings worth it? Is this a fiscally responsible situation? And when we have those that come up this year, we don't anticipate the state making that change and knocking STRS down one. So we're having those conversations now. We're getting our postings out now. We're asking our staff Monday to fill out a staff survey and kind of have even a plan as to, not only the staff survey used to say, are you planning on retiring this year? Do you plan on trying looking for a job in administration or somewhere or some other place? The other one this staff survey has also is, do you plan on retiring this year? And then it lists the next 4 years because that matches with our fiscal or our financial forecast, so we can kind of have some more data is always good, and to make it easy along the way. So we can kind of look at where we're at with that, so we can have plans. Now we're going to meet with our administrators, talk about the potential openings they have. We're going to do that in early March, which is next week actually. Can we think about it? So in the next 2 weeks, Mallory and I sat down. We're going to have those meetings with our administrators to look at our potential vacancies, class sizes, all of that, and say what are we feeling. What can be filled through attrition. Some of those vacancies, what do we have to post for? And then we are signed up, or I say we, Mrs. Aliff is signed up for a number of job fairs. I love interviewing. It's one of my favorite things. I'll try to make it to a couple. We have a number of postings that we're going into knowing these are ones we need to fill. These are ones that we don't. So kind of really knowing where we're at and letting people know ahead of time, this is where we're at. I think the other thing from a district standpoint is we are out there and up front with what we need to do to kind of right size some things. So we talked about shifting our boundary lines and redistricting and what that looks like in a couple of years. We're seeing low class sizes at Parkside, and to shift some Parkside's enrollment is declining faster than other schools. So how do we shift from that? So where do we shift people around a redistrict, and how does that look? And having some of those conversations to get that out earlier rather than later, because that's a part of the whole plan moving forward. And it's part of not only the strategic plan, but I guarantee in the strategic plan, a facilities plan is coming, again, a revamp of that. So what does that look like, and how can we kind of work both of those in tandem to kind of get all that information out ahead of time, especially with the Buckeye project moving forward. So, and then the last one was the feelings of inequity or disconnection among staff, particularly in our larger buildings. That's a big one. When you have these large buildings, they, especially at the elementary level, they come from these smaller, a lot of our veteran teachers work, some of our, like Leroy, and that's a small school. You do that into a school that's 3 sizes as large. How do we move forward with that? And how do we have, these feelings feel there, as well as, the differences between when our staff goes and we do a PD day at Parkside or Riverview and what that looks like, and they're coming from, Melridge or Buckeye. And I think the board's addressed that with the Buckeye Elementary project moving forward. And I think the district, we've looked at it to do instructional rounds, to go get in to see other people, go across, you get our teachers into other classrooms. Teachers don't see teachers that often. They typically want to close their doors and teach. But our instructional rounds practices get a group of teachers together to go into other rooms to see how other teachers teach, to pick up some ideas and to really do that. I think the other thing is really just, we do these all sharing, like staff sharing. There was one at Riverview I was at yesterday on just engagement, in this program and engagement, and it was one of the best I've seen. It was done by one of our teachers, phenomenally done, and just it was a quick 7-minute video put together through actually AI. But you took a huge slideshow, dumped it into AI, came up with a 7-minute video. It was spot on levels of engagement, engaging practices, why engagement is important, and why just being at compliance doesn't count. Like, we need to get into actively engaged and what that looks like. And then the coup de grace was then she tied it to the portrait of Riverside Beaver and what that looks like and all of the traits. It was amazing. I did share it with all the board as well, because I was so proud of it. And take 7 minutes and watch it, and it's something that it's phenomenal. It was done by a 2nd grade teacher, but it would carry up to the high school. They may have to change the Beaver cartoons a little bit, being engaged, to be a little bit more fitting for high school. But other than that, you could take that same project and show it, and that's the part of the March 2nd PD is sharing the great work that's been done this year across it. So that's really what we've done to take these steps and to continue to kind of have that along the way. And I think we're going to continue to move forward and see where we're at and continue to grow every day. We still hear, and I know we have some areas we have to continue to grow on. We still hear about communication sometimes. Sometimes it's we had to do it because we had to do it, and sometimes it's we didn't plan it well or it didn't get to one spot or another. So we have to work better at some things. So we're still growing in some areas. I think for the most part, we took the results to heart and really want to make this a place that people want to be. And I think that's been a collective effort through our district leadership team, as we all took it as feedback and not, oh, here they are and they hate me, but this is really what, because when you're sitting the surveys about you, the first thing you get defensive, but it's really looking past that, and it's okay. But what does this mean and what are they really saying? So getting to the root cause of something. That's part of what we did, is a lot of root cause work.
Well, thank you for that. So just to clarify, the survey for this year is when?
So we're going to do the survey through the strategic plan committee for this year. So it's going to look a little different because it's going to focus on the strategic plan work and getting their impact from a strategic plan. We are going to give the same climate survey next year, much earlier in the year, around November. So we give them some time to get in and get to go right before. You can make a reason to give a survey whenever, but November's a pretty decent time. If you do it right, but well before Thanksgiving break. Anytime you come up to any major break, those results can be skewed because there's a real, or around a full moon. Those two things will definitely skew results to some extent.
Thank you. I read every single comment that was typed. Although I wasn't on the board, I was privy to the context, and the comments were overwhelmingly positive for the administration, so I do want to call that out, which was not surprising to see, but from building to building, there was a consistent theme there. So just wanted to call that out for you and your team. But 3 things that we know will drive employee engagement in regards to the survey, at least in my opinion, is predictability around the survey. Whether that's every year in November or every year in May, whatever's decided on, the employees are going to want to see, at least in my view, a predictability there. That's one. Second is a high participation number. Personally, I think the goal should be 75% and higher. It's not mandatory. You can't manage who takes it. You shouldn't have a roster of who takes it. It should be anonymous. But the goal should be when the survey is done that you're looking at least the 75% participation. And then the third thing, and probably, I don't want to say the most important, but certainly very important, is that meaningful change comes as a result of that. And meaningful change is only defined by the people who take the survey, not by the people who read the survey or administer the survey. It's only by the people who take it. And there has to be ways to quantify whether or not they found meaningful change as a result of the survey. And that's going to be through a lot of the things you mentioned, sit-downs and conversations and one-on-ones and roundtables. But there also has to be predictability to that as well. So thank you for the update, and that's all I have on that matter.
Well, I know you also had in there the list of comments. I think you
Sure.
tabulated
I did.
words in there, right? And I know
Yeah.
the school board was another one of the comments that came through in that survey, and just
147 times.
yeah. So, and we're aware of that. And unfortunately, last year we were not able to make any kind of traction on that. That will be part of our discussion, starting with in our session next week. Part of that will be walking away with an operating agreement among the board on how we're going to operate, which leads to the behaviors that we demonstrate and
Sure.
how we're going to engage. So
That's great.
that work is coming.
Love it.
Just unfortunately, we couldn't get it to take off last year.
I have tried to tie it to the portrait of Riverside Beaver. So
Which Mr. Audina
I have
suggested,
tried to
so.
tie it. I can't keep it to a page if I do that, but I have tried to tie it to that. So
Well, we appreciate
if you
that.
count front and back, it's one page.
Okay, we'll take it.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's a draft that I will have to share on the 6th for
Yeah.
your input. So.
Great. Anything else on the climate survey from last year? All right. Vouchers Heard Ohio?
Right. So I have some additional information that I'm gonna pass out that I had sent to administration, and it's lengthy, and I'm not
I
gonna.
tried to summarize.
I know
it.
you did, and you did a great job, let me tell you. I'm not going to belabor and review some of the things that Dr. Rotino has already covered. However, we had previously talked about perhaps joining the lawsuit. This paperwork just gives a little bit more detail about what the voucher programs really are. There are 5 voucher programs. The one that we are most concerned with is the Ed Choice Expansion Scholarship Program, which is the second one on this list. just for the public's knowledge, there are 5 of them. The Ed Choice voucher program started, and it was meant to be for students that are in failing school districts. There is an autism scholarship, there is a John Peterson special needs scholarship, and there is one that is strictly for Cleveland school children. And those are, without a doubt, necessary things that the state should provide for those students. And so those are not the ones that we reference when we're talking about the Vouchers for Ohio program. And so just a little bit about the expansion scholarships. Those students are eligible for $6,165 in K through 8, and they're eligible for $8,407. Now, these are probably last year's figures. I'm just going to tell you this data was pulled last year. In grades 9 through 12. Eligibility is determined by household income, and it goes based upon the federal poverty level. So those who are at 450% of the federal poverty level will get the whole scholarship. You can go all the way up to 750% of the poverty level and get a phased-in scholarship. On the next page, I went through just as
Again, just to be clear on this,
Uh-huh.
this again is coming from our state funds, right? Again, nothing to do with property taxes, it's
This is
purely
not,
the state
this
funds.
is purely state funds. The voucher and the money that comes to K-12 public schools all comes from the education line item in the
Okay.
state budget. So whatever they get, we don't. That's just basically, in a nutshell, the way it works. So I went through, and people will say, well, what is the federal poverty level? In 2025, the federal poverty level was $15,600 for a single individual. It's $31,200 for a family of 4, and $70,200 at 450%, and that's $140,000 and $400 respectively for a family of 4. When you think about what the federal poverty level is used for, they use that for eligibility for Medicaid, SNAP benefits, USDA free and reduced lunch benefits, premium tax credits for health care programs that people get on their tax returns and when they go out to the marketplace for health insurance, and then this voucher program, the state piggybacks off of that number. That number is used for a lot of different things out there. What it really means is that it allows a family to have a full voucher if they get 450% of the federal poverty limit. And on a sliding scale, it means that a family making $117,000 as a single and up to $234,000 for a family of 4 are eligible for a voucher at reduced rates. That, to me, is a significant dollar amount of income to be eligible for a voucher. In the next page that I have, I've gone through and just listed out the numbers of vouchers that have been made available in the state of Ohio. It started out in 2021 with only 21,873 vouchers awarded. And in 24-25, which was the latest data that I could pull together, they've given out 43,330 traditional applications to a tune of $283 million, and the expansion applications at $492 million for a total of $1.09 billion in that school year. So since expansion, I thought this was a significant piece of data. 76,784 vouchers have been awarded since they expanded that program from just schools that were in failing schools. So since that time, they've awarded an additional 76,784 vouchers, but only reported 3,350 more students in private schools. So I thought that was a significant piece of data. Again, I went through, and the slide that you saw that had the dollars that were going to the schools in our area was pulled from a large spreadsheet of data that had all of the private schools in the state of Ohio that were getting money from vouchers. And so I was able to sort that information and just pull the information from Lake County and our area. And again, we would be getting $20,891,000 if we were to get the amount of money that they get on average at our local schools that are not K-12 here. That was significant. Again, the Ohio Fair School Funding Plan is the basis for where we get our dollars. That was developed a number of years ago, however, it has been abandoned, and it was supposed to be implemented over 6 years in the state budget. They funded the first 4, and then they abandoned it in the last 2 years. So that plan was never fully funded, and now that they've abandoned it, they don't even have it at all. So there is no plan for school funding at this point in time. So we'll see where that goes.
It goes back to the way they used to do it, where they fund everything else, and then what's left they give to the schools.
Correct. And because
there's a-
because the voucher plans are, again, funded from the same line item as K-12 schools, public schools, what they give the voucher program, the public schools don't get. So it's all one line item in the budget. Riverside has to transport, which I think Dr. Rattino already had indicated. The law says that we have to transport and that we can't charge folks for transportation to private schools. We have auxiliary services that we have to manage for private schools.
Those students are eligible to play on our sports teams if those teams don't offer that sport.
Correct.
So we have to hold rosters, spots for them, or we allow them to.
So interestingly, in the last budget process, the Speaker of the House indicated that school funding is unsustainable in the manner in which it was supposed to be funded in the Ohio Fair School Funding Plan. And the lawsuit that the Vouchers Hurt Ohio folks are saying that what is really unsustainable is the explosive growth in vouchers themselves. So the lawsuit, again, has 5 count challenges, which is on this sheet. Last July, I think there was a judge in Franklin County, I think it was July, voted on that 3 of the items counts were unconstitutional. And so that is now going to appeals. And that should probably be heard this summer. I think they're slated for August, if I'm not mistaken. It will eventually go to the Supreme Court, I'm sure. Obviously, that lawsuit, school districts have the right to challenge state law. And in order to do that, that costs dollars, obviously, to fund that. There's attorneys that have to be paid. There's a lot of cost that goes into that, and all this data and research that is being provided. It is funded by school districts who are joining this lawsuit for $2 a student. I recognize that there is some legislation proposed right now that they would withhold some dollars. I still feel it's important for us to move forward with that and join the Vouchers Hurt Ohio lawsuit. It's not a lengthy resolution. It's included in your packet. And at the end of this is the list of school districts who have at one time or another been part of this lawsuit. And it's 4 pages long. So I'm asking that this district consider joining this. I don't know if we want to do it today. I was hoping that we could do that today and add this to our agenda. I feel it's important, again, as we are looking, and we're going to see the forecast very shortly. When we look at the forecast and we continue to see our funding shrinking, I don't feel like we have a choice but to actually join this lawsuit and do something about it and put our money where our mouth is and actually tell folks in Columbus that you can't do that. So,
I spoke about this a little bit in the last meeting, and I think, what is it, just to give a perspective to everyone, out of over 600 districts, we have, about 300?
about half of them are signed on with the lawsuit currently.
Right. And in Lake County, Wickliffe is the only one?
They're
that
the
is
only one in Lake County.
Joined. As far as Geauga County, I think I read where some additional people joined. Chardon was originally the only one.
West Geauga is part of it, and
Yeah,
Chardon.
West G. But I think there was one more that I read recently. And the question is, for our enrollment, it would be $2 per child,
student,
so
correct.
approximately, it would be about $8,000. And that would be paid every single year,
It is an annual fee
okay?
to support the legislation, the lawsuit. And hopefully, I really don't know how long something takes to go through all the way to the Supreme Court. Who knows how long that can be wrapped up? Long time.
Yeah, I guess
We'll see.
my only concern is, let's say, we don't know what's gonna happen in August, and then if it gets appealed and goes to the Supreme Court, we could be talking years, and so are we paying $8,000 per year until this is finished? Because we know how fast courts move. And I did discuss it a little bit with, Dr. Rotino. I don't know, do you have any?
The board would have to take action each year. So
Each
your,
year.
your obligation would be for
Yeah.
1 year.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of these districts have been part of the challenge 1 year or multiple years. Some of them not every single year, some boards did not re-up or whatever. But at the end of the day, if we don't take a stand as a board and say this is fair for public education, I don't know how else to do that. I don't know how else that we can make a stand. It's not that expensive. And I get it, we're deficit spending, but as we deficit spend, we're also then saying, this isn't important enough to put this money towards this lawsuit and try and stave off some of those dollars. If the state has the dollars to fund that many dollars to education in general, we should be getting more of it.
I have a
Okay,
question. I have a
so-
couple questions. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Would the 8,000 be going to the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy? Is that the group fighting on this
Yes.
behalf?
Yes.
And this is not a loaded question, but how do we know that all 8,000 goes to this and not just to the group in general? Meaning, how do we know that the 8,000 is fully vested towards this argument?
I would imagine you can ask them for that paperwork. I mean, I think that's on the website, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
okay, so since you're the finance person, I guess I would ask, if, obviously, we have our House bill, our famous House bill that
920.
leaves us flat. So would we collect any more money unless the state changed the way they fund schools, which they've been found unconstitutional since, it's like a trivia question.
Well, these are different pots. So House Bill 920 is impacting local property tax.
How much you can
Vouchers are
collect.
impacting state funding.
Yeah.
So they're two
Okay.
separate things.
So
If
in
I'm-
other words, if they had more funds available instead of giving them away for this purpose, there may be a solution to funding our schools.
Last year alone, $1 billion was siphoned off public education for charters and vouchers. So it's a substantial amount of money. Obviously, it's a political issue, for sure. I think it's really what the board has to decide, in my view, is, because the money's immaterial. $8,000 isn't gonna make a difference at all, either direction. Not that you waste $8,000, I'm not suggesting that, but it's not gonna move the needle at all, either direction. So it really comes down to, in my view, what the district wants, if the district feels like this is something they should stand for. Jamie Calendar's threats aside, which to me just exacerbate makes me want to do it more, not less, personally, but I think that's really the question. And of course, anytime you get mixed up in this, which I think the board has to consider too, is there'll be some folks out in the community that will not like it. And we are levy eminent, we're gonna talk about that in just in a few minutes. So I think those are the choices you have to make.
And we're not, I don't think that anybody at this table, maybe, I don't know, I shouldn't speak for everybody, is saying that people should not have a choice of where their kid goes to school. That's not it. It's just, we should be fair, we should be funded fairly, is I think what we're saying. So, and again, at least that's how I see it. It's not, I believe everybody should have a choice where they want to send their child to school. It's just, we should get fair funding.
Agreed.
Right, when I look at $20,891,000 versus the $8 million that we get, and the fact that half that number of students that we have here at Riverside get $12.2 million, something about that doesn't seem equitable to me.
And to put the $8,000 in perspective, we're seeing a difference of almost $3,000 per student in funding. That's less than 3 kids that we're talking
Or
about
one
spending.
voucher.
Or one, yeah.
It's one
One total
voucher.
voucher.
I did find the answer to my question, actually, by chance. Section 3, under the
It's in the data.
voucher joinery, it says, of the $2 per pupil, 50 cents per pupil shall be initially allocated to the payment of coalition operating expenses, and then the remaining $1.50 will be allocated to the support of the coalition's effort to challenge the constitutionality of a choice voucher program. Okay, that clarifies. And me asking this isn't me questioning the efforts here, because I agree with Ms. Krinsky and Ms. Grassi, what both of you said. I'm curious, though, if there were 5 schools, for example, that were signed on to this, and that's, let's say $40,000 would go into them, using the same math for our school district. What does every additional school do for them? Is this increasing their legal counsel? What is it in particular that they gain from this money? And I'm not suggesting that we benefit from the payment of other schools while we sit here on our hands. I understand the value of all of us participating. I'm just curious what the benefit to them financially is adding 8,000 more to their argument. Is it, like I said, is it legal counsel? What is it that gives them the benefit of having more and more schools add on to it? So just a question for thought.
I would imagine that they're anticipating a lengthy process, a lengthy court case. They actually do a lot of public advertising. Also, I know they've been doing a number of the workshops that I've been at. They produce a lot of materials for those things. You know, I don't know if that's,
Lobbying.
they do a lot of work. Most of the people that are working for them, at least that I'm aware of, are volunteer. I know that one of the school board members from Cleveland Heights is a very big member of this coalition. They've gotten Dr. Fleeter, they've gotten a number of individuals, former state representative, who have provided them with all of this data, who do all of their research, so.
So the, and it hasn't passed yet, but the, if you spend $8,000 then the state could, it hasn't passed yet, how does that look for us?
It goes into escrow.
Yeah.
And so that's, I mean.
So they would hold
They would hold it,
$8,000
they would hold it
a
in
month.
escrow, and the language says they hold it in escrow until,
Until it's resolved.
resolved, or the state or the district disengages.
Which is really interesting, because until it's resolved, it didn't say until it's resolved a certain way, it just said until it's resolved. So, once it's resolved, you get your money back.
Okay, so technically, if I'm right, it would be 8,000 spent and then the 8,000 held, so it's a minus 16 in our budget? Is that what I'm hearing?
If it were to go through, I don't know if, you know, I'm not gonna put Dan on the spot as an attorney, but,
Right.
the legality of that, I certainly hope we haven't,
It is nicknamed the bully rule.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's
I read it.
Yeah,
patent
that's
bullying,
just
I mean.
That's, I mean, so,
Yeah.
That has been argued that it will be questioned as how constitutional that is as well.
It
So
can-
that's
cannot
going to
be
get added to it, so.
Help us all with it.
And you mentioned the political part, because I think when I reported on it at the last meeting under legislative, asking why Wycliffe's the only school district in Lake County, you alluded to a political thing. So can you enlighten us somewhat? I don't know.
I mean, this is my own personal assessment, but our county is about 75% registered Republicans. It's a very conservative county, and many view this as a political issue, R's and D's. So, do you run the risk as being a part of this? do you run the risk of alienating voters that we need to support us down the road? So I think that's you can't quantify that. You're
Okay.
never going to know, but I believe it would have some level of impact.
What I find interesting is it's the same voters that want to abolish property taxes, a lot of them, right? So it's like, it's kind of interesting, like, we need to do this to get more money, right? But, so it's a kind of, it's a
It's a
conundrum.
catch-22.
Yeah. Mhm.
To get more money that's already collected.
Yeah,
That's the
right,
other-
correct,
Which would keep us from
We
asking
do-
for new money.
Yeah.
correct,
Right.
yeah.
We do have our board retreat coming up,
March 6th.
March 6th, yeah, that's it. So, I mean, can we have some further discussion at that?
The board retreat agenda is pretty set, and I think we're gonna take every minute that we
Oh,
can, so this
right.
would wait
So
until
there
March.
would not be,
Mm-mm.
But then we have the next meeting is the 12th.
March 12th.
the
No,
12th,
4th. Yeah, 4th.
okay.
Couple weeks.
Yeah, because I would like an opportunity to delve into this with some particular people in power.
Yeah, I'm-
Not in power, but I guess I should say, people on both sides, influence, community leaders, whatever. I know people in Geauga County that are involved, and I guess I would just say, you know, I mean, if it's $8,000 a year, but then it could be 16, and then you're doing it every year, and knowing how legal goes, that's my only concern with deficit spending.
Yeah, so
It's
I'm okay to join. I think that we have to take a stance and say, we believe that our school should be funded fairly. And if this is the way we can do that, I'm good to move forward. I don't know where,
Move forward today.
I would be comfortable. Not that everybody is, but that's what the question is how do we want to kind of proceed from here?
On face value, I'm okay, frankly. I do have just a couple little questions that I need to have answered.
Okay.
But the merit of it and the goal of it, 100% support it. But I just feel for me to vote today, I
Would be
need,
comfortable.
I just need a couple more things answered. and-
Okay.
But certainly leaning in that direction, to be honest.
But we had the earlier board meeting in March because of break, right? Yeah.
Right. We can add it to that agenda.
Mhm.
If that's kind of what I'm hearing is to.
Yeah,
put
I
it
feel
on the-
comfortable, but
on the-
what's a couple weeks? I don't.
Yep.
All right, so we will add it to the March 12th agenda.
Thank you. And at the end of the day, again, my personal opinion, again, is that if we continue to sit back and say, let's not do this because we're afraid of what people are going to say, that's the whole reason why this happens in the first place. And we can't stop those kinds of things unless we actually take a stand against some of these things. So I appreciate at least having the conversation.
Thank you for the information.
Right, I think that was all the old business that we had to cover. And there was no new business submitted.
Mrs. Brewster did bring up
Yeah, I did.
Buckeye, the plan for Buckeye. I shared with you the newest, which just came out today, a new iteration of a Buckeye in your folders there. That is when looking at that, we're really excited about what that can provide for our students at Buckeye. I have it. We talked a lot about kind of how can we best utilize the space there, and have a reduced footprint. So again, that's an even smaller footprint. I think that saves us in building costs of about 5,000 square feet.
Is that any
No, is
different
it
than
back-
what we saw?
Yes.
It is,
Yeah,
it is.
you're
It pushes
going
it up against the building and it takes away the vestibule between the old build and the new build. So we think that's a really good space saver. The other part that is in there, and I have a meeting tomorrow with TDA. I sent them kind of a sketch of it, is in looking at remodeling the original section to utilize some of those, they're the two small group rooms, or one's actually currently a staff lounge and the other is a small group room. To utilize those as bathrooms for the classrooms that are right next to it as kindergarten rooms. So we're not losing space in the classroom, not losing educational space. When you're adding that many staff, when you're adding 12 staff members, you need a larger lounge anyway. So we would need to use a classroom for a lounge and utilize that. So I'm gonna have, I have a meeting with Ryan. Once I get that next reiteration back, I will share it back with the board. And I know that Roger is costing that look out kind of for the whole project. So not only inside, not only the build, but then the scope of the remodel as well. So,
Okay, and I know you showed the cluster of 4 kindergarten rooms, you said with bathrooms, so that's, is that what you're doing?
So they will be, we will put those in the original section, which actually from a logistical standpoint is closer to the office. It makes a lot more sense in kind of building them out. We kind of had some of those discussions today. Once I get that from Ryan with the arc, like I drew some lines and kind of said, you know, but once I get that from Ryan and his architectural renderings and a confirmation that it can happen, we think it can. There's a sink in each of those rooms. We know sanitary's there.
The plumbing's there.
But the spacing wise, I will get it out to the board.
Okay, and the one thing, because you are combining, you know, 2 buildings, you know, one of the concerns that has been in the existing building has been room for support staff, whether it's, you know, title reading, you know, having 4 people in one room, that we're going to have enough room for those people.
We will have enough room for, including creating small group spaces, not only in the new space, but then
Right.
also, I did ask for some of that. We also looked at, do we need the size of a mechanical room on the second floor? That was my other request is, if we look at different ways to heat and cool, can we utilize some of that space up in the second floor for a small group room? Because that's the only change that I would make, is in the second floor is right below, right by the TDA. That's the one change. There's no small group room up there. I think I would add a small group room. Other than that, though, in terms of office space and all that, we look through, we should have plenty of staff for itinerant staff, support staff, small groups, all of that.
Okay, and I know that it was mentioned initially about where the gym was going to be, so the gym would be off of the driveway on the west side.
This footprint is smaller than the initial 8 classroom addition, but it is exactly in the same location.
Just not as lengthy.
So it is
So
not as
it's,
lengthy.
it's still
It is
over
on
by
the
the
drive. It is-
library, or?
No.
No,
It is the footprint, so it is the same.
The same one that
yes,
we had
It is
been
the
talking
same one.
okay,
That is the most cost-efficient way to add into Buckeye and to add the additional classrooms.
Essentially where the trailers used to be is where the
Yes,
gym is.
yes,
Okay.
it is gonna go right off of that access. We'll have a drive that goes farther down and then a turnaround. We would suggest the turnaround be actually after the fence that hoses the chiller to kind of come around from that standpoint to add parking. We are doing some traffic studies now, so we send them the number of buses that we are expecting to kind of go there. And so Ryan's making sure that everything is kind of feasible and fits along the way.
now, and when I listened to the business advisory, you know, meeting, it talked about some kind of retention area to
Yes.
collect water, because I know there's a wetland in that one corner.
It's not that there's a wetland, we have to collect a runoff, and so we have to put a retention area that's in there. They had some, you know, they're working with Lake County Stormwater to see what they have to actually collect. They had some variances initially.
So would that
looking to where to put it.
necessitate a fenced-off area like you see?
All of our retention areas are fenced off now.
Okay.
They weren't prior, but we put fences, so it would be a fenced off area. The one that is put in the new Riverview space, and at the end of the new river parking lot, is actually probably one of the best thought out ones in the district. There's a gravel kind of section right before it, and then the retention area. And I say that because the gravel can allow for parking, you know,
Okay,
at other times, but then also you pile out the snow there, and the snow melts and goes right into the retention basin.
okay.
So they can do that.
And then you did mention, you know, trying to keep the specials together, or Ryan initially mentioned it, you did too. You know, currently where the art and music room are, it was that in the 90s edition, which I was shocked to hear that that's already 30 years old.
Yeah,
I
we
didn't
did
think
some
of it
math.
being that old.
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, so, you know, those rooms, I don't know what their footprint is as far as the class size, you know, class space. I know we did have a regular classroom in there, and I think there was one window, and the space was different, whether you'd have a full-time class in there, or that would be more desirable for a special.
So I think that's more desirable for a special. I think both those rooms, as we've talked through kind of programming and how this looks, and you know, music needs to be in one of those,
Yeah.
because music is loud.
Mhm.
So we want to put those, you know, put music by the library. I think that's a great combination. But
Yeah.
but that's one. So yeah, we've actually talked about what that looks like and kind of keeping those 90s, that 90s edition for library music, and then the specials.
So the gym
That's it,
would
and
still be away from
The
that?
gym would be away from that. That's the one that when we cut the space back, we can't necessarily capture back, is putting all the specials together. You're not gonna get everything out of it, but I think this gives us a lot for, the best in terms of financing and keeping green space on the property. Cause that was
Right.
another kind of thing we really wanted to look at, is how do we keep our green space?
Right, because we need to replace
And this is,
or
yeah.
keep
Well,
a ball field,
And this
base
is, and again,
basketball.
this is a smaller footprint than the
Yeah,
original one we're looking
which is
at.
great.
So we get more green space out of the deal.
So if, there is a need for, like, right now you're envisioning the library staying as it is?
Yes.
Or, okay, yeah, because, I know it's been said many times, trying to, replicate as much as possible what we're doing at Riverview and Parkside. And, as far as the gym, it's almost very similar. But then the question became, the libraries at those two newer schools are almost like two classrooms. If you were gonna try to put it in a classroom, they are big. And then we are gonna be serving more students. What do you see as far, because I know we had discussions about this in the past, about the current gym, that's gonna be just the cafeteria and some food serving changes?
So, food service, Mrs. Gifford asked that we look at a combi oven, so kind of why we're tearing it apart to put in a water line into the kitchen to do some remodeling that she would pay for out of her funds, and revamp the service line as well. And looking at the current gym now, we want to address the floor, because the floor is hot, so we want to make sure we abate that. There's a lot of the areas that we can lay over instead of just abate the whole building, so that's a cost savings in terms of using the things. But I think that gym area, in talking with Rich, actually earlier today, we think it's the best idea to kind of abate that. I would love to, work with that stage, ideally take the stage out if it's cost efficient and kind of stretch that out, and put some windows in and get some natural light in from that area. So I think those are questions that I've asked Ryan to kind of say, he's hinted to it, and I said, well, let's kind of see what that looks like.
Yeah, I
'cause
just
think
didn't know
you
if
can
we
get-
needed more cafeteria tables.
We can make it
Yeah.
work, because you're looking at roughly at the most, probably about 100 a grade level, which you can fit in that space. I think if you make it a little bit bigger, it might be, it's advantageous. Plus, we're gonna need probably a bigger cooler, which would be attached to that coming out. So if you level the floor, you can add another egress door a little bit farther down. So it does, we can make it absolutely work. Within it, we can make it, if we can make it better and make it kind of more of a smoother transition, it makes sense. We could also do something cool with a ramp up to the stage and do student dining in 2 levels. So I think there's some really neat things we could do from that area originally, but actually taking down the curtains and all the remnants of the stage, because we're building a new one, but use that as some sort of space. But I think vital to that is getting natural light into there.
Right.
And you
Now,
could
would
poten-
Latchkey then be in the old gym or the new gym?
I don't know. I would
Okay,
let Latchkey
just
decide.
because they have a lot
Yeah.
of stuff.
I think, and that's one, storage is added in both spaces. I would let Latchkey decide what works best for their programming. So I think they could be, they could be in both.
Okay,
And we can make that work too, so.
okay, and then this does have an elevator,
It does.
yeah, okay.
Yep. 2
I know
stories does
that
require
was-
an elevator and 2,
Yeah, Still cost effective.
but this is, and everyone has said that going with this type of footprint is more cost effective than building in
Okay.
2 spaces or,
Yeah,
all that.
I think that there would be a lot of congestion in the hallway if you had all 4 specials and kids.
Could be.
I mean, those are skinny little hallways in the existing
Yeah.
building. Yeah, but, okay, well, thank you for answering
Absolutely.
my questions.
So we do have on the agenda today the bond,
We do, yes.
and it doesn't have anything, it's just allowing us to move forward with one issue, and it doesn't have anything to do with the cost yet. It's not.
We do
we're-
not have-
It's not
we
we're
would-
going to sell now, it's just the authorization to go
We
ahead.
would do the
when
authorization.
we're ready.
Once we authorize the GMP, we would sell the next day.
Right, so.
Okay, and then Melridge, just based on discussion about the space, and I know isn't there something with, there's a trailer, but you're only using it for storage right now?
Yes.
Okay, but those are to be removed?
The board did vote to
Yeah.
remove that trailer this summer, and that was, I think, November.
And then is the construction company taking care of the Buckeye one, or I don't know if that was all?
That has not been, that would be part of the process, is the
Okay,
one that's
the
there. We could
removal.
try to auction it off again, but I don't think we would get it. It's not necessarily the cost of the trailer. They would have to move it, and that cost is cost prohibitive.
Well, and there were tires removed underneath that, so that's a whole nother issue. Can't roll it up.
Any moving company would come with axles and tires. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
typical for those things.
Okay.
That's not an issue.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Ardino, did you have some questions?
Well, no, I was just gonna add, when she had mentioned the lunches, I was gonna just remind us that with us not having gym and lunch in the same place, you could also add an additional lunch, which would maybe lessen the need for more square footage of cafeteria tables, because you're adding a third lunch, right? It would be
I
a
do
four by
believe
fourth.
Parkside and Riverview run 5 lunches, if I'm not sure. I mean, I think that's, I kind of asked there, it is a very challenging schedule for me to read. But I do believe they have a number of lunches. They have more lunches than Buckeye and Melridge because of the fact that they have to turn that room over for gym time. So it would be a large, and when it's not in use for gym, it's a large gathering space for students. So it is a really exciting project that can kind of have a brand new school walk away from it.
Am I seeing on here, are these additional for team teaching? I don't
Yes,
remember those
yes,
being
we
there,
are
so-
we are putting doors in,
Those are-
we are putting doors in the rooms where we can for team teaching to continue.
Sorry, I know
that.
you can't see it, but
Yeah.
it's showing in the old wings, each classroom only has a hallway door. Now these would have
Our-
interior doors.
Yeah. Our maintenance department gets requests to knock holes in walls a lot now recently in our legacy building, so we're gonna try to make sure we can get them set up so they can team teach.
Real quick, what is on the back end here, do you know?
That is the chiller for the air conditioner.
Okay, and give you the right information?
It's basically a cinder block wall. It's all outside, right?
Yes,
There's
it
no
is
roof on
outside,
it.
yeah, it is yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It's your new house. We're gonna move you right here.
That's fine. All right, any other questions? All right, so that brings us to the Board of Education Committee and Liaison reports. First is Buildings and Grounds and Operations Committee and Strategic Plan Liaison, Mrs. Grassi.
Gosh, we've talked about all the building stuff.
Sorry.
We had a productive meeting this past week. We talked about the Melridge issues that we had, where we had a unit that was broke, and our staff got that fixed same day, which is tremendous work on their behalf, so thank you for that. We have a supply line at the John R. building that has sprung a leak. It's a hot water line, right? A heating hot water line that supplies the boilers. And Mr. Arlesic kindly brought us a sample of that pipe that was broke. And we got to witness that, so that was fun to see. Just to indicate that some of the things that we don't see that are underground or that are in our crawl spaces are the things that are breaking in this building. And things are very old and our original infrastructure is still being used, and so those are the challenges that we are facing. We had some heating coils in the media center that had some holes in them, but they also got those running. It's just a fix for now, but those are 32-year-old units in that the media center is 32 years old, and so some of those things will start failing soon. We talked about having a thermal scan of our roofs and our parking lots. Mr. Arlesic brought us some information on a proposal that would have an airplane come over and fly overhead and do some digital scanning and show us what the faults are with our parking lots and roofs. That was determined that it would be feasible for us to do and that it would be advantageous for us, especially as we go into the building project with Buckeye. There's a discount for doing all of the buildings at one time, but I think we tabled that for just a little bit.
I think we had some further questions and some research to look at kind of what the report is, and also wanted to talk with, CCI as well as Roger to make sure that report would be useful.
Correct.
That was my question, if they were in on that.
We got some very useful information from Mr. Arlesic about the things that our staff accomplishes when they are here in the buildings and the cleanliness of our buildings. He provided us with some information that came from a report on advanced cleaning, and the different levels of cleaning, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what we strive for here is the highest level of cleaning that we can provide. And he went through the different buildings in our district and gave us some information on what gets cleaned on any given day. And I think what struck me the most was the fact that we have 25 bathrooms at Riverview, which I thought was interesting because when you think of Riverview as a new elementary school, it didn't like 25 just seemed to be a really big number to me. But they are cleaning overall. At the end of this report, there are 252 classrooms in the district. They move 6,048 chairs to be cleaned every night. There are over 10,000 pieces of furniture that get cleaned. When you look at Riverside alone, it's 275,000 square feet. They have 89 classrooms, 37 bathrooms, 92 toilets, 51 sinks, 41 offices, 2 gyms, 4 locker rooms, an auditorium, 2 kitchens, 2 cafeterias, a media center, 12 stairwells, an additional 5,400 square feet with 3 classrooms that was added just recently. So I thought that was very interesting. We do it with a minimal amount of staff, and many thanks go out to those folks who are in that department that do those things for us every single day.
I can't even keep my 3-bedroom clean, so.
I know, right? It's really amazing the work that they do. They do an amazing job. And again, I can go back and remember when it was 2011 and 2012, and we had 1 custodian in a building during the day, and we had no nighttime custodians. Mr. Olesic wasn't here at that time, and our buildings did not look like what they look like now. And so it's much appreciated what you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that was the extent of our meeting. And strategic plan update, sorry. We have an agenda item on our agenda tonight to approve.
To
Affirm Impact Group, right? They come highly recommended, and it's a little bit of a change going with somebody new this year to update our strategic plan, and so the plan is to be done by
Right.
August, correct?
Approved in August.
That's a fairly quick turnaround on a strategic plan, and so there will probably be a lot of work that goes into that in the next
Starting
couple
on the
months.
6th.
Yep.
So
And they will be facilitating our board retreat on the 6th, and so that will be great. I can't wait to meet them.
They're phenomenal people, and they're going to do a great job.
That's all I have.
All right, that brings us to Curriculum and Programming Committee and the Booster Organization Liaison, Mr. Audino.
Thank you. Okay, in the curriculum and programming, Dr. Malakar shared with us a variety of things, starting with America 250, the celebration the whole country's having this year for the 250th anniversary. We discussed thoughts on how Riverside can share in this in our own unique way. Plus, in addition to some of the things that the county's doing, more to come on that, but that's just kind of the starting point. Interestingly, my youngest daughter was asking me about America 250 because they talked about it in her class, and she wanted to know if I remembered the beginning. And I said, I can assure you, I would have had one of those big wigs if I,
That's funny.
right?
You and me both.
You would never have known I had no hair, I'll tell you that. All right. The second thing we discussed was the camp invention, which is for K to 6. It's 2 separate weeks, summer program for elementary/middle school students. It's STEM related, that will take place here on campus.
Well, we don't know that yet. I don't want to give out information that we're looking into.
We're looking into
Right,
it.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I'm sorry, that
It's
was,
still in the
to
oven.
interrupt you,
Yep.
yes. Thank you.
But no cost to Riverside families. If we go forward with it, it'll be a registration fee. Interest seems high, right? So we are confirming logistics and dates. I should have put that at the top of my notes. Okay, third item, the 3D Student Agency Survey. So the district is, right on this one, we are participating in a student agency professional development cohort. A part of that work discusses adding the 3D survey, which gathers perceptions from students, parents, and educators about learning experiences. It's free to the district and could provide valuable data to our strategic plan, which Ms. Rossi just alluded to. We also discussed the upcoming Professional Development Day on March 2nd. The teachers will continue the work specific to their personalized learning. established at previous professional development days. They'll end the day with everyone together, both classified and certified staff, to celebrate what's been accomplished across this year. Even though there's 3 months left, they're celebrating a little early because this is the last time they'll all be together before the year ends. Also on March 5th is our upcoming 10th grade reality tour, which is new. I happen to be a part of the committee to do that, which I joined pre-board, so I'm kind of there as a businessman / dad, even though I don't have anyone in 10th grade. But Dr. Malakar and a small team put together an incredible day, a really incredible day, like I said, on March 5th. The day will start off here. We'll have 15 entrepreneurs coming in and visiting classrooms in a round-robin style, if you will, sharing with them. These are entrepreneurs, by the way, that are from Lake County. And the objective here is to showcase to our students that there is a life beyond Riverside here, where you can raise a family, you can start a business, hence the entrepreneurs. Then we will go to Lakeland College, which we will take a small tour there and have lunch. And then after that, the students will be divided up via a bus to 15 local businesses also in Lake County, a variety of businesses on the medical side, on the construction side, you name it. And they get to pick where they go, and they'll be there for about an hour and a half or so, helping showcase all that's involved in each company, because when you think of, say, a hospital, it's not just doctors and nurses. There's a marketing team, there's a finance team, there's a legal team. And that's kind of the objective from one business to another. And then after that, they will come back here and then go home for the day. But that team is comprised of myself, Dr. Malakar, Alyssa Keim, who is one of our guidance counselors here at the high school, and then Jessica Kafia Corlett, who's been on the business advisory board with Dr. Rotino for a number of years now. But thank you to Dr. Malakar and that team, because I'm looking forward to just being an observer on that day, and it's going to be pretty awesome. We then discussed the strategic plan, which Dr. Rotino will get more into, and Ms. Grassi also commented on that. Then we briefly discussed the RLEEF funds, relief funds, which basically, at the end of the day, has become money that's been donated to the school in a roundabout way. And the objective here is to use the money for, think like career experience and exploration instead of school supplies like textbooks. So more to come on that as we determine how and when to spend the money appropriately. Moving on to PTA, PTO, this was my first meeting with them. They meet about 2 or 3 times a year. Ours was last night in this very room. And Jen Kalin, who happens to be my neighbor, she oversees the group. She used to be a PTA president at Buckeye for a number of years, and now she's just kind of the organizer of the 5 schools' PTA, PTO programs. And we discussed last night their fundraising efforts so far this year, activities for the students, other fundraising efforts for the rest of the year. So that was pretty neat to see. And then we wrapped it up discussing the Easter egg hunt, which is coming up on April 4th, the Saturday before Easter, which, even though it only lasts a few minutes, it is a lot of planning. We spent a good hour on that. But it's very well run, and the Ms. Kalin and the 5 PTA presidents do a really nice job, in addition to Mr. Carabine, who helps out with a lot of the logistics, so thank you, Mr. Carabine. But I just wanted to say thank you to Shelley Santone, who is the Buckeye president for PTA. Then you have Elizabeth Lumen at Melridge, Lauren Thompson at Parkside, Becky Silbaugh at Riverview, and then Rachel Mercer at Lamouth. So thank you to the 5 of them, in addition to Ms. Kalin, because it is all volunteer time and they put in countless hours. And that is my report.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that brings us to Policy Committee and Legislative Liaison, Ms. Brewster.
Okay, well, Policy Committee met at 4 o'clock on February 17th, and Jimmy Lee Byers and I, went through the policies with Dr. Rotino, and he's going to talk more in detail about it. In these policies, which this is the first read tonight, there are quite a few that are fiscally related that you had to weigh in on as well. So, it's interesting, like for example, we don't know with legislation, for example, that's been proposed regarding the Ohio High School Athletic Association with allowing high school students or athletes to be paid for their name, their image, and likeness. That's why it's called NIL. But there is legislation, but we have to go ahead and act on what we have in front of us,
Yeah,
correct?
so OHSAA, who's the Ohio High School Athletic Association, approved an NIL, I don't know if it's a policy or a bylaw, I think they use bylaws, but they approved an NIL bylaw for high school and middle school students. They're one of, I think they're up to 38 or 39 states who have NIL right now. That came out of a court ruling, ironically, that said to OHSAA, either you do it, as in the athletic association, or the courts will do it for you. So OHSAA had an emergency vote. The members kind of said, this is the plan. They are trying to take the burden of running NIL off of the school districts. And it is really more of, currently they see NIL as a recruiting tool for universities. And it's not necessarily a district that is paying students, but it's more of a university or upper level institution who wants a student who will pay that student. And it is 1%. It's of students, if not even less. In the past, and I learned this in the past, what they had done for some of our really blue chip basketball players, or that they had asked them to, hey, go to a different state, and move into it, move to where they have it, enroll there, and then we'll use a vendor there to pay for it. So it can be NIL to either the athlete or the athlete's family, because they are under 18. So,
Did you get a chance to put on the policy for NIL for treasurers?
I tried. Yeah, they said no.
They not.
Sorry.
I'm going to file a lawsuit.
I think you got one, because, yeah.
Maybe you
Yeah.
mentioned it, is there a cap on what these kids can make?
There is not. You have to, as soon as you are a part of an NIL agreement, you have to declare with the OHSAA. You cannot be photographed in anything that is representing your school. So you can't wear the mascot, and if you look at even some of the commercials that are out there, they would wear like black and gold, like the colors, but there would be nothing that reflects to the name or the mascot of the school. So.
Okay, and as I said, some were job-related expenses, but you have talked prior about the new entrance requirements.
We have put that out ad nauseum, and we will continue to do that. Kindergarten and preschool for actually all school requirements must be a certain age by the first day of instruction. So kindergarten and preschool are 3 and 5 by the first day of instruction, which we try to keep the same, which is different than the first day of school for students because of some testing and all that. But then first graders have to be 6 by the first day of if they don't go to kindergarten by the first day of first grade. If they are in kindergarten, that age does not matter.
Okay. All right. And you gave an update on, it talked about release time for religious instruction, because we did
We
try
decided as a committee not to adopt that policy.
Right.
It was removed because of the
We're just
charges.
pulling it off.
We
Okay.
pulled that off.
All right, and there was just other things regarding, as I said, job-related expenses, budget preparation, purchasing and bidding, procurement of federal grants and funds, use of credit cards, and procurement of cards. Use of district tax exempt certificate, because that's kind of changed. Vendor relations, what you can and cannot do as an employee. And then the affinity rewards and other discount programs, whether you're getting miles.
A
using this
majority of
credit-
those came from a recent auditor of state ruling.
Yeah,
To
so
update it, to make it a
it's
little
it's
more
just clearly
common
defining
sense.
it so everybody's on the same page.
Absolutely.
And then do you want to talk about the AI?
Really excited about the AI. So AI policy, we have to adopt a policy by, I believe it's June 1st. Our AI policy came, it's the Neola template, but in adopting that policy, we worked with a group of teachers and then through our DLT technology committee to kind of see, well, how do we want to teach AI? And we also brought a group of students in and talked with them about AI. And that was really telling about how they are, they're fascinated by it and they're scared by it. And it's kind of unique. And I think that's how everybody, when you talk about AI, specifically generative AI, what they really feel about it. So it was, it is talking about how do you do this and not necessarily, and really good conversations about AI is not just used to cheat. We had students who say, I use AI to put in sample math problems and it takes me through the steps so I can figure out how to do it, and say, give me 5 more examples like this so I can do it. I use it for a sentence starter. One of the things in the policy is if you're using AI, you just say that it was generated from AI, and you're upfront about it. That's there, because it really is. It's a true game changer, and I think that's something that teaching our kids how to use AI in a safe environment is really important. And even looking at the different platforms that are there, and when you go out on an AI bot, how do you filter it? Because you have to be COPPA compliant, you have to be SIPA compliant from a technology standpoint, which some of those, some of the filters that you currently have, like the biggest thing I heard from students too is, why isn't ChatGPT open? ChatGPT is my favorite, why isn't it open? The reason why we can't open ChatGPT is we use Securely as our filter, and Securely will not filter on top of ChatGPT or Gemini, so it actually sends students out to a number of sources. We are looking at actually replacing the filter with one that will at least filter Gemini, so now we can use a more powerful AI filter, and that that will be really impactful. So Mr. Renwick is trying to stay on top of it and keeping his hair, because there's a whole lot to it. So.
Right. Okay. And then, so this is the first read tonight, and then on March 12th, we'll have the second read and a vote, correct?
Yeah, second read.
And I don't know if the board has any questions about any of that.
Um,
Anything you want to add, Jimmy Lee?
No.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question,
Yeah.
because you brought up the release time for religious instruction? Can we get an update on how that's going over at Buckeye at our next meeting, maybe
Sure.
on the 12th?
I can
Just
give you an
brief.
update now.
Oh.
It's going fine. The very first week they were supposed to do it ended up being our snow day week, so we started a week later. So I think they're probably only maybe 3 or 4 weeks in. Maybe they've had 3 weeks. We have, I think, 2 students in 2nd grade and maybe 2 or 3 in 4th grade at Buckeye. So it's going fine. They pick the kids up. Yeah, there's a good working relationship. They have put it out to the whole school. That's who we got, was 2nd grade and 4th grade. They had enough students because they need to have 2, or their requirement is 2 in a grade level, so a student isn't going by themselves. So they're working those 2 grade levels. I think they're looking to expand the LifeWise program into other schools, but we haven't even really started those conversations seriously,
And
other
they
than I
walk,
know.
Right?
Yes, and that's one of the benefits, yes.
Somebody comes and gets them and then.
Yep, walks them down, they
select
do
the
their
Buckeye
thing.
because of proximity to the
Right.
church.
Yeah, so that's the other thing that will be a little bit of a hiccup, is the other districts or
Right.
the other schools are not as walkable as Buckeye is. So it's going fine.
And there's no cost to the district for the
Correct.
program.
No.
Yep.
And then there was one additional policy that we.
So the
put
one
in.
policy that is added that is not a Neola template, it is a McIntyre original. It came from out of our audit, our federal audit for our food programs. We don't have a specific civil rights policy directed to food service, and that was a requirement that we do. So Mr. McIntyre was nice enough to draft one up for us, and it is up there for the review.
It's interesting. If we're required to have one, why wouldn't Neola have, that's
It's a
an
new, I
interesting
think it's a new,
miss.
it's the first time, I think it's a new thing, because we asked, we
I mean,
pushed
every
back a
school
little
district
bit.
would need it.
Every school district has that.
Maybe they'll use yours.
I was gonna say, are they gonna copy the
Copyright it.
McIntyre original?
They might.
Sell it to
It's
them,
a
Jim.
beaut.
This is how you're making history.
Yeah, really, your next career. Yeah.
Right.
All right, and then as far as legislative liaison, we've talked quite a bit about, the vouchers and other related legislative things. So at this point, there's a lot of proposals at the state level, and you just have to kind of wait and see what they're gonna do. So, kind of a curious thing.
Yeah, they just got back in session again, and
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
So we'll see, maybe I'll have something to report, or more to report by
Oh,
March.
well, I've got a feeling.
Yeah.
Oh, gee. Okay,
Okay,
That's
next
all.
is the Superintendent's Business Advisory Liaison, which is myself, and we did not have a meeting in February, but we do have one in March.
We do, we'll have updates from the reality tour, which is super exciting.
Yes. So at this
What day
point,
is that?
It's the 11th. It might be. No, it's the 12th. It's the
There you go,
Thursday
just got
after.
one more day.
Yeah, see, I gave you another day. But that's, yeah, so we'll have an update on the
Great.
reality tour and the other events.
We do.
that we're doing.
we do have a
Like
board,
to-
we do have a board meeting in the
I know we
evenings.
have a board meeting,
Oh.
I thought I had
It'll
a.
be the morning of the board meeting.
All right, next is our superintendent's report.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to go quick, because again, financial forecast, but I would be remiss if I didn't say, February, we have one of the greatest events that Riverside ever does. Mrs. Rick got to experience it this time. I think she had
It was
tears in her
awesome.
eyes when she came in to see it.
My cup was full.
And that is our annual Valentine's Day dance. It's a great event. We hosted it a little after Valentine's Day this year. I think there would have been a snow day and scheduling and
No, it was supposed to be
Oh.
scheduled the 13th, but a
But
bunch of school
bunch of
districts
schools
had
were
it.
off.
Closed
for,
Friday, Monday.
Friday,
so.
Monday. Yeah. So we did it on February 19th. It was hundreds of students and staff from schools all over Northeast Ohio come into our field house with our students, and they just, it's so much fun. There's lunch, all the volunteers and all the teachers and students working together to make this a true memorable experience for all that, and everyone who leaves is nothing but praises. So thank you to our staff for continuing to put that on for the greater community. It's awesome. Another great thing to be proud of and super happy for is Mrs. Cabell. She was the VFW Ohio High School Teacher of the Year, so it's not just local, it is for the state. She was nominated and chosen by the Leroy Thompson Post 7939, as well as the District 7. And, she's a high school social studies department chair. She teaches psychology. She's a military family liaison and a member of our Veterans Memorial Project Committee, who continues to make sure that we have the appropriate flags up, that we continue to recognize our veterans for their service, and provide our families, our military families with what they need. Another great event in February. February is just a great month. We have the spelling bee. As a personal runner-up of a school spelling bee, I can say that it's a wonderful event, which shocks everybody because I'm a horrible speller. But congratulations to 8th grader Amelia Gregg for winning the district spelling bee on February 3rd. She participated against all grade level spelling bee champs, and I can tell you the bee was riveting and continued to go again and again and again with amazing, challenging words at the end, because you have to spell 2 in a row, and it just, there were some challenges. But our 4th grade champs, Edison Clark from Buckeye, Josiah Leal from Melridge, Aria Bassich from Parkside, who was the runner-up, and Logan Marcoux from Riverview. 5th grade champs, Azim Bukala from Lamuth, Wyatt Prophet from Parkside, and Giovanna Aruba from Riverview. Our 6th grade champ was Dylan Wright. Our 7th grade champ was Manishka Bagula, and the 8th grade and overall champ was Amelia Gregg, who went on and participated in the Lake County Bee, and represent the Riverside respectfully.
They will always remember the word they won on. Like,
You always remember the word
that-
you
that the
lose
word
on.
lose on too, right?
And if you're a good father like I am, you always harp your child for the word they lost on, like vitamin.
So when my son was in 5th grade and he was the district
I
champion, he won on the
remember
word weasel.
I remember that.
Weasel.
Wow, that was an easy champ work because I think ours were like serendipitous and things like they were very challenging.
I'll always remember that.
But thank you for filming that, because, yeah, I could be.
Another source of pride for the district, we were recently awarded an $8,100 bus safety grant for the Ohio Bus Safety Grant Program. It is less than we asked for, but we'll take any money that we can. We're going to use that funding to replace authorized safety features and kind of up our bus safeties. I believe Mr. Andre is looking for some lights, some brighter light bars and things like that, especially on the buses that go through some of our darker township roads, to really recognize that, hey, this big yellow thing is a school bus. So we're excited about that and getting that in. And those changes will happen this summer. So for the last time, our girls basketball team was the WRC champs. And I say that because the WRC, this is the last year of the WRC. But for the 3rd time in the last 4 years, The girls basketball team clinched their WRC title, so we are proud of our girls for that. To give an update on our girls, although they did finish as WRC champs, they lost to my alma mater last night in the district semifinals. So I'm kind of upset that they lost to Nordoni. I wish they would have beat them and then lost to somebody else. But our boys basketball finished the regular season at 14-8, second in the WRC. It came down to the last game. And they will play Solon in the district semifinals on March 3rd. Hopefully they'll avenge last year's defeat to Solon and kind of come back with that. Wrestling finished second in the WRC and are competing in sectionals. I believe it's today and Saturday?
No, just Saturday.
Just Saturday? Not 2 days anymore. So
No.
they compete in sectionals, and good luck to them. And hopefully we'll get some people down to States this year. That's always super exciting. Our girls wrestling team will compete in sectionals on Sunday. And again, this is the second year that girls is a varsity sport. We're hoping they do really well. Our gymnastics team, which is another varsity sport, finished second in the WRC again. They compete in districts on Sunday, and I know we have some, I think we have some people who have a good chance to make it out of there and continue to go well. And then swimming and diving, Dan Fleck, Blake Fetchko, Charles Hart, Liam May, Addison Johnson, Lily Hickson, Phoebe Conway, Maddie Toss, all advanced out of sectionals to the district meet. So great, fast times in the pool, and excited to see where they go as well. So congratulations to those athletes and coaches. Coming up is our spring musical, and associated with our spring musical, opening night is always the Senior Citizen Appreciation Night. This year's musical is Between the Lines, and talking to Mrs. Poggi, they're killing it with the music on there, and they've got a really talented cast on there. It is Thursday, March 12th at 5, Friday and Saturday the 13th and 14th at 7:30. Tickets are available on the website, and on March 12th at 4 is the semi-annual Senior Citizen Appreciation Dinner in our cafeteria.
Okay, and we're still starting the school board meeting at 6
I
then?
believe
Yeah, because we'll have a full agenda.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be a
And
packed.
executive session too.
Yeah.
Okay.
As Mr. Audino mentioned, the RPTA Egg Hunt, save the date, is Saturday, April 4th. Don't be late. It starts on the campus front lawn. We do have a new starting procedure this year, so the time frame is 12 to 12:02. We think it's going to add a minute to the egg hunt, but that's about it. It's a great event. Hopefully we won't have snow. We've had that in the past. We'll have the Easter Bunny there as well as the Riverside Beaver for pictures afterwards. And I think we're going to try to get some community involvement with some of our, we invite our police and fire to come and help and just kind of display their trucks so kids can kind of see that. And it's an awesome community event. So
We're also considering having a staggered start for the different grades so that parents, especially single parents, if they have kids in different grades, they can go to each of their respective hunts.
Stretch it out a little more.
yeah, last year we walked the bunny through. The megaphone didn't work last year, so we walked the bunny through as the start, and I had to actually escort the bunny off from when we got to the preschool start because it was a mass cast and they were pretty scared, so we had to take them off and protect them as the bunny handler. And that concludes my report.
But Dr. Rutino, to be clear,
That
that is not the budget
No,
bunny.
that is not bad budget.
That is not bad budget bunny.
All right, thank you. That brings us to Treasurer's Report and Committee Updates. So Finance, Audit, and Personnel Committee and Alumni Association Liaison, Mr. Byers.
Okay, I'm going to start with the Alumni Association update. I attended their February 19th meeting. Mark your calendars for the 5th Annual Alumni Association Golf Outing, which will be held on Saturday, June 20th at Painesville Country Club. It will cost $100 per golfer and include 18-hole scramble with cart, a hot dog lunch, and a dinner provided by Mission Barbecue. All proceeds go to scholarships and other activities of the Alumni Association, such as recent contribution of the scoreboard, the new softball. They pay for it all?
No, they paid for a portion of it.
And there'll be more details coming soon, and you can find that on the Alumni Association website and the Facebook page. There is a deadline coming up for the Hall of Fame nomination on March 1st. If there's anyone you feel deserves a nomination, please do that soon. There are only a few days left. You can find links to the forms on the Alumni Association website, which is riversidealumni.com. And lastly, they're always looking for more opportunities and ideas to contribute to the school district. So please reach out if you have any ideas or see any needs. And then we'll switch to the finance and personnel piece. There were conversations on the negative effects of the expansion of the homestead exemption, resulting in a $5.5 million swing to our 5-year forecast, which is now the 4-year forecast, or what I like to call the forecast. And I just want to point out that is due to funding changes and not spending. And then we talked about the board retreat on March 6th. I don't know if you've heard it, Steve mentioned it, but we are levy imminent, and he will propose a few levy options and how to effectively communicate the needs and importance of that levy. Steve talked about frontline software and getting staff trained on how to use it. The software opens the ability to compare how we are doing compared to other school districts in the area. Is that all everywhere? Like
Not every, it shows us all the
Who uses
data of any school district that uses Frontline,
Yeah.
which is the vast majority of the districts, not all.
There was some conversation about exploring some other shared service opportunities, but nothing to report on that now. And at the last meeting, there was some discussion about updating the administrative handbook. I've had some conversations with Chris, and it's on his radar. There was no discussion at the Finance Committee meeting, but he is looking at to flush out a couple job titles before we get to work on that. Right? And that's all I have.
Great, so that brings us to the riveting treasurer's report and the financial forecast.
I feel like that was sarcasm.
No, not at all.
Sure.
I wish I had a drum.
I do want, before I even start, just want to thank Mike and our department has worked very hard to try to give the best picture we possibly can in this forecast. But I also want to make sure everyone's clear, a forecast is a tool. It's a flexible, living, breathing document that will change. But it is extremely helpful as we move forward and make decisions. So I think it's a critical piece. And the other thing I want to say before I forget is when we talk about Buckeye and renovations at Buckeye, I want to be very clear. That is that's not general fund dollars. That's permanent improvement dollars. So permanent improvement dollars cannot be used to pay salaries. It can't be used to there's a lot of things that can't be used to do. It's strictly for what it sounds like, 5 years or more, long-term improvements, essentially of facilities for the most part. So again, Buckeye does not impact the 5-year forecast, and you won't see that on here. So let's just kind of take a look at where we are, except it's not moving.
Turn it around.
Turn like that.
Yep. And hit the down button.
She tricked me. She lied. Okay, so I have a feeling I missed something, and let's leave it at that.
Sound effect.
So we're looking at right now our current fiscal year projected general revenue, fund revenue is $56 million and change. Okay, there we go. Projected general fund revenue at 57 million, and our projected loss for this year. So what we mean by that is that's the amount we are deficit spending. Now what you will see as we move forward, when we compare this to the forecast we presented in the fall, we were not deficit spending. We were, but there's a reason we are deficit spending, and we'll talk about that. And it has nothing to do with mismanagement of funds or additional expenditures. It had absolutely nothing to do with that. So the beginning balance in other words, what our cash reserve is. In July was at 20 million, and we, you can see it's made, we're cutting into that carryover by $896,000. So where's that, where do we get this money? Where is it coming from? What's our revenue? And we were talking about this earlier. Projected local taxes at about $37.5 million. That is primarily coming from real estate property taxes, but we do also receive a public utility tax of about 3.2 million. Now I'm lasering things. Projected state funding is $12 million. So, you know, earlier I gave you that figure that we're receiving about $3.2 million in state funding per student, and that's just a simple division, our math of dividing that number by our total number of students, and that tells you how much is coming from the state in terms of those students. The Fair School Funding Plan, which comprises about $8.2 million of that money, but it is, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse because we've hit it a lot, but there was so much work done by administrators across the state of Ohio and by the legislators themselves to come up with this plan, to only back out of this plan in short order. So this plan was agreed upon by bipartisan, that this is how we should fund public schools, and then when we got to actually making the budget, changed their minds. Restricted state funding, we receive about $385,000, and our state share of local taxes is $4.2 million. So our projected all other revenue at $5.8 million gives you an idea of just where all of our dollars are coming from, and this kind of quantifies it. It was your question, or what you mentioned earlier. What is the exact percent? It's 67% comes from local taxes, 23% from state funding, and 10% from all other. Don't be confused though, this is just general fund. It's not all funds, this is general funds. So moving forward, where do we spend it? Well, it's no surprise, we spend it on people. We don't make widgets, we're a service industry, and so roughly 80% of our budget is paying for personnel. Salaries make up about 30.5 million of those dollars. Benefits, which are rising year over year over year. Sometimes what I'm projecting in the forecast, what I embedded in the forecast, is 11% year over year. Keep that 11% in the front of your mind as well as we kind of move forward. Purchase services, we spend about almost $7.8 million, and all other expenditures there you can see at $3.6 million, and they include things like additional things like salaries, supplies, capital things, debt, other operating expenditures. We've had some advances and transfers, which we are working very hard to eliminate. Mr. Patrizzi told me that moving forward, we're going to have almost none, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Yep, thank you. Spoken like a true assistant. Personnel costs, again, which I just mentioned, 80% of our expenditures are people, which is not a surprise. A lot of times you hear things like, well, actually the state made a move in changing some built into one of the, I think it's 186, where they said you cannot spend more than 15% of your budget on administrators. Can't exceed 15%. What do you think we're at? What would anybody guess? No staff are allowed to guess. Well, actually, that's all that's here pretty much. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think percentage-wise we spend on administrators? Those fat cats that don't do anything and sit in offices. 6%?
Yeah.
Not bad, pretty close, 7.1%. Pretty good guess. So, financial forecast, this graph just kind of really lays it out nicely in terms of just a quick little snapshot. There's our revenue, there's our expenses. And you can see what's happening over the course of time. What's also very interesting, look at that blue total revenue. It almost looks flat, doesn't it? Why is that?
House Bill 920.
Thank you, Rich! Woo! You get a Rich out of that instead of a John.
Yes.
And this is important for us as we start planning. This is a pivotal piece of information or data that we got to take a hard look at when we are at our retreat on March 6th. So this is showing us what our projected cash balance is, and you can see we cannot get to 2029. I'll be real explicit about how they determine what's caution, what's watch, and what's fiscal emergency. But I can tell you, fiscal emergency is when you're upside down. You cannot run in the red. You can deficit spend, but you cannot have a deficit without state takeover. So that is very much at top of mind as we move forward. Yes, sir.
No, it's Miss Johnson.
Does that mean that we're gonna have to put a plan of correction in place with the state because we're in negative
We will by next year, and we'll
by
talk.
next year?
Yes. So
We
we'll
don't have to do it this year, cause.
not yet. We still have a tiny bit of cushion, but cushion ends in the fall.
And what was the thing that the state did? I think they kind of rolled this back, but weren't they limiting how much money you could save so that you could?
There's a cap on how much you can
Yeah.
carry over, but I'm happy to say that we don't have to worry about that.
We don't.
Not now, anyway.
Didn't they up it to 40%?
They did. It's at
Yeah.
40% cap.
It was,
It was 30.
yeah.
I just want to point out as well, as we talked earlier about House Bill 186 and the inflation, if you look at 2026, the blue that we actually earned, that's because of the inside millage and inflation. That's coming from the sales tax holiday that's not being a holiday
You're
anymore.
stealing my stuff,
My
man.
But-
I didn't steal your stuff. So average annual change in these two areas. This is really interesting data. Again, this is where I'm drawing this from is from Forecast 5 from Frontline Software. Pulls all this data for us really quickly. It's really useful. But historically, over the years, we've seen an annual change in revenue from year over year at almost 3%. Right now, inflation's at 2.5%, last time I checked yesterday. But this is what we're seeing now, less than 1% increase in our revenue year over year. And again, there's some reasons for it. We'll hit it in just a minute. But, that's pretty significant change over that 3-year time period. While our expenses, I can tell you again, you guys have heard me say this before, and I don't know how much of it really resonates or rings for folks. But being the new guy, there are some advantages to being the new guy. And part of being the new guy is you have a fresh look at it. You don't have any bias. You don't know who did what. You don't know why things are the way they are in terms of staffing, all those things, which can be, you combine that with, asking questions of Melissa, for example, who's, I think, been in the district for about, 6 years now? Something like that? 106, okay, that's closer. But this place is lean. It truly runs lean. And you can see, it's even demonstrated here, how we're reducing our expenses. But look at that compared to our increases in revenue. When you look at healthcare rising at 11%, that's our second highest expenditure rising at 11%. And that's not anybody doing anything nefarious or mismanaging. It's just healthcare is expensive, and we all know that. So historically, again, we've seen that 6.4, and we've cut it. Important slide here too, as we start to make decisions and prepare for the 6th. We have policy that tells us that we want to stay at 90 days cash carryover. And you can see those are number of days of carryover that we can eat into. And by policy, we should be on the ballot. Without changing policy or not, I mean, we don't have to follow policy. And it doesn't directly say you have to be on the ballot. What the policy says is that you must be doing something about it. So I don't want to confuse anybody with that, but you can see in 2027, we're below 90 days of cash carryover. Student enrollment, again, you might see different numbers because it's how they're counted, but this is how the state counts it. So this is pulled out off of EMIS, and you can see we continue to have declining student enrollment. Is that unique to Riverside? Absolutely not, no. All of Northeast Ohio, most of Ohio, with the exception of Columbus and some of the suburbs around Columbus are booming and growing exponentially. But for Northeast Ohio, you're seeing, I was really surprised. We went to the meeting where we had to present to the, it was the treasurer and the Colson, prosecutor and somebody else. And they were super friendly and warm. They actually gave Chris and I a hug. But they were fine. It went absolutely fine. But we got to hear all the other school districts. And what surprised me the most was the percentage of decline in student enrollment in Minner, Willoughby, Eastlake, everywhere.
Can you make a slide like this with the actuals though? Because again, like even if you look at this year, it's not right. You know what I mean?
So this counts, so in this year's, it's not butts and seats.
Okay.
No.
Because what this represents is for every student that goes to Auburn, they count as a half. Because they're halftime here, halftime at Auburn.
Yeah.
So what about like CCP?
CCP, it depends on where they're CCP at. If they're
And how many-
CCP here,
Is it here or is it off
is
campus?
it full-time, are they enrolled somewhere else? So that's it. EMIS is a whole different language, but that's kind of how it works in that aspect of this specifically represents butts and seats. If it's an online CCP, that doesn't count. If it's a in-person CCP offered on campus, it's coded a different way. So then that's how it works. So us increasing our CCP on campus makes sense for a couple reasons. It gives more access to students who they don't have to drive or any of that in a higher quality class than an online class. But then even Auburn funds that go away, like those are weighted funds. So the half that goes away is actually weighted and counting paid more than the half that stays here. So if we count some of our classes, so bringing in the construction class at Auburn, our enrollment actually will count for those kids as a half, but then it's also weighted so we get more funds for that, for those 12 to 15 students who sign up for that class if we run that.
Yeah, so that, and it does look confusing because you'll see a graduating class that reflects a number that's actually higher than what this chart might reflect. But part of it is because, maybe 30 of them went off campus for whatever, or 40 of them went off campus forever. Well, that's a 20 student swing, depending on where they went and how long they were there.
But I think our enrollment is staying pretty flat.
We are, so I thought that too, and it's really starting to, kindergarten and first grade are 250 as a class. Our kindergarten class is 250 students. Our graduating senior class is 320.
So what's the projected?
So that's a
projection
big-
based off of?
That's what I was gonna.
Well, they're just, one of the things they look at is birth rates, construction. So casement is not on here. So this could be totally skewed in our favor if casement comes to fruition. But that's not being picked up by EMIS and that's not reflected in the 5-year forecast. If it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, I'm not trying to doom and gloom or trying to mislead, but I'm trying to be conservative, but yet as accurate as we can.
We're on the guaranteed, and I think but the other part is,
Yeah.
as, in forecast 5, which it does have birth rates out 5 years, but then it also has what they call a cohort survival rate. So the birth rates that are in the area, how many of those, what's the percentage of those that attend and enroll in kindergarten at Riverside? So you can start to see trends, and we're about 90%, but you're seeing decreases in birth rates
Okay.
too, which is that's a significant, and that's just a nationwide trend. We're
Yeah,
seeing,
that
I think
that is a nationwide
I
trend.
think we're going, it used to be 2 point something, I think it's decreased from there.
Yeah.
You said we're under 2 now, right?
I think we're under 2
Yes.
is the average.
Mhm. So, per pupil, general fund expenditures, Dr. Ratino talked about where we stand in terms of our expenditures as it relates to or compares to the rest of Lake County and Geauga County. If you threw Cuyahoga County in there, it'd even be all these, significantly more districts that are outspending us for sure. So, at the end of the day, you can cut. Could we cut more money? What do you think? Could we? Yeah, we could. But at what cost? You want 35 kids with your first grader in first grade? Because that would be a lot of fun to have 35 first graders and be the teacher. I think a lot of people would volunteer for that. The reductions come at a cost. Reductions come at some point, that tipping point of impacting your programming and impacting education. And when you do that, what do a lot of parents, if they can, especially if they can, what do they often choose? Something else. When I was growing up, there was no something else, right? You went to the public school, that's all there was. But that's not the case anymore. We're in a competitive market. So balancing being cost effective with providing quality programming and attractive programming, that's the sweet spot, right? And that's not easy to find, especially when you're in deficit spending. We're spending, think about this, we spend $83 every day for your student to be in school. Every day. So, if they're sick, keep them home, but if they're not, get them to school. So we're paying $83. I'll send you a bill. This is a little bit different. We said 67% earlier, right? So, but what we're looking at now, we're just taking resident property owners versus what's coming from state business taxes, which would be in the other half of the pie historically or normally. But what it's showing you is what's people's. I'm a taxpayer. I own a house. What's my actual share of what we're doing? And it's 54%.
Is that across all funds?
No, that's just across general. That's just general. Those numbers would even dwarf it more. Are putting the property owners a little bit less. But the Rolf case, I think 4 times. Is it 4? I believe it's 4. The attorney says yes. All right, 4. That the way we fund public schools in Ohio is unconstitutional because of its reliance on property taxes. But to this day, I know of no legislation or plan, because what meets the needs of one school district doesn't meet the needs of another. And so the districts almost battle within themselves, and the legislature can't figure it out, and we are where we are. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these, but I do want to really make sure everybody understands this first 2 bullets. Because these first 2 bullets tell you Why? Remember I said we're deficit spending $896,000, I believe that number is, this year, when we weren't supposed to? What happened? Rotino, did you run off and write checks I don't know about? I mean, what happened? It wasn't that.
I just used the credit card.
Oh, you just used the credit card. Bad budget Bonnie's not gonna like that. But it's an inside joke, but we did, never mind. Too hard to explain. So, 86 counties in Ohio, and all those counties had the ability to double the 2 existing property tax credits if they chose to. 4 of those counties did it, Lake being one. So I would submit to you this. Has there ever been a property tax that was levied by a school district that did not receive the majority vote? That ever happened? The answer is no. So, the will of this, to me, this is not democratic. The will of the people was to pass a levy. The will of the people in this school district was to say, yeah, it's going to cost us some money, but we're willing to pay this. This is what we want to do. And then three county commissioners took it upon themselves to say, you know, you don't know what's in your own best interest. We're gonna double this tax credit. And you know what you're gonna get back on average as a property owner? I would submit to you, 95% of the people wouldn't even notice it. Would you notice if you didn't go to McDonald's one time during the month? Would you notice that? Would that impact your bills? $16. The average taxpayer is getting $16 back. Well, how did that impact us? $1.3 million a year. $1.3 million a year so we could all go to McDonald's one time.
I got the credit card.
Thank you. I mean, I just find it, no, I'm at a loss for words. So 186, again, another piece, we've talked a little bit about that already, and 129, all these which Dr. Rotino covered, so I won't spend a lot of time doing that. So what I want to show is where we were in October to where we are today. So you probably heard me say in October at earlier board meetings, while we're levy eminent, I've been shy about saying that, we're levy eminent, but we're in better shape than most school districts, and we're going to be able to stay off for a few years. Kind of, let's let this, interest rates, I don't know if you know, they dropped below 6% today, it was announced today. Inflation's at about 2.5%. So maybe things will stabilize a little bit, but and we don't know what's going to happen with property tax. Is there going to be something on the ballot this November to abolish property tax? I think that's a really horrible idea, and so do most people that know anything about money or in finances. But nonetheless, and oh, by the way, abolishing property tax, you know who it hurts the most, the absolute most, is townships. Townships, their police departments wouldn't have any money. None. No funding for a police department, fire departments. Dr. Rotino mentioned there was a shooting, was it an actual shooting outside the school?
There was a gunshot, yes.
And how quickly law enforcement responded to that scene. What would, if they lose all their funding, who's responding? Who's coming out in a township? Why a township versus a city? A city might have income tax. to kind of offset this at least a little bit. Townships, no. So this is what we were looking at in October of 2025. You can see this is probably the most important piece, right? Do I have a red? No, it doesn't show up on the screen. But you look down at where it says revenue surplus or deficit. Certainly not much. It's a sneeze, is all it is. But at least we were not deficit spending. That's important to remember that number. And then you can see we're deficit spending by 4 million, 6 million, 8 million. See, I got little arrows to help you. And then you can see our cash balances. But what's important here is we stayed black in deficit, but we stayed black all the way through. This is the new forecast. You have the full forecast, by the way, uploaded into board docs, and so you can get into all the nitty gritty all you want. But this is what I think people need to know and be able to digest. So take a look at that. It was $49,000 to the good to $896,000 by a decision made on one night by 3 county commissioners. This is what we're looking at here is just our ending balance. And look what happens. In 2029, instead of being above our head, just above the water, sitting at $938,000, we're now staring at $4.5 million in deficit. Folks, we cannot cut our way out of this. Not without significantly impacting what we offer to the students that go to this school district. And do we not have an obligation as educators, even treasurers, to make sure we are providing a solid educational outcome for our students? And I don't know, probably most people in this room are homeowners in this school district. Nothing impacts, 3 things impact your property value. Obviously what you do to it and how you maintain it, clearly. But it's Parks and Rec, emergency services, and public schools. Those are the 3 things that impact your property value every bit as much as whatever improvements you make to your property.
Dr. Thompson?
Yes, ma'am.
So there was a lot of discussion over the last year about the additional property tax revenue that we were going to bring in, right, with the increase in property taxes?
But that's not true. Thank you for bringing that up. So some of you might have seen an increase in your property taxes. There was a huge increase overall, percentage-wise. So it only, thank you for spurring my slow mind. It only stands to reason that as a citizen, you would just assume the school got more money. But is that true? The answer is no. The answer is no. For those of you there's some people in this room that can remember, most not now, but 1976 was a very turbulent time in this country. You remember, don't you? We were coming off of Vietnam. Inflation was 2.5% now. In 1976, it hit a high of 20%. That's like third world country stuff. So when inflation rises, what happens to, at least on paper, what happens to your property value? Does it rise or fall? It generally rises exponentially. So in 1976, you're sitting there and your house is worth all this money on paper, but nobody's going to buy it. And all goods are increasing at 20%. It was horrible. Horrible time. But how about for public schools? It was our glory days. Because as in 1976, as your property value went up, guess went up without a vote? Your property taxes. So collections, schools were flush with cash. The state had to do something. Voinovich is a name you might remember. Voinovich was governor, senator, I think he was Cleveland mayor, I think, is where he started, I think. He was a state legislator at the time, and he and some others crossed the aisle, penned the most impactful legislation in public school history for the state of Ohio, which has now been codified in the state constitution. And that is that when a levy passes, it never collects more money. It stays that way in perpetuity. Doesn't ever increase, ever. So if your taxes increased, the only way any of those additional dollars are coming to us is because you passed a new levy. With one exception, which I'll show you what that looks like. It's inside millage, and I don't want to get too crazy, but we have passed 55 mills, passed millage on the books. You know how many mills we're collecting? 20 of that 55. Why? Because the state auditor has to ratchet down the millage that he or she is issuing to the community to make sure we don't collect more money than whenever it was when we passed that levy. If we passed that levy in 2012, it will never collect more money than that. The only exception is what's called inside mills, which for us is 4.8 mills, which is not impacted by House Bill 920. Until recent legislation even capped that at 3%. So, there's the difference. There's the bottom line. That's the flip that we've experienced. And I'm not going to speak for the board. I'm going to speak for myself. As the treasurer, I will speak for Dr. Rotino, as we've talked about it enough. We have to be on the ballot and soon. We have to be. It's our only option. It is the system. And we need the community to back us. We can't fail. So I thought this was an interesting little graph. So to explain what it means. So across the top illustrates House Bill 920. That's our revenue. Look at that. From 27 to 28 to 29 to 30. It's barely moving. It's moving a little bit. A little bit. That's inside mills. But if you take revenue, so I took revenue, I assumed that this inflation is going to take place at 2.5%. So for us just to stay status quo, where we are right now, if the inflation stays at 2.5%, we would need to, instead of collecting 53 million, we need 57 million, 59 million, 60 million, 62 million, just to stay even. We're 3.6 million short here, 4.5, 5.5, 6.8. That's 20 million over 4 years. That if we just do status quo, we don't hire another person, we don't create another program, no expensive student moves into the district, with special needs or anything like that. We're 20 million short. If we were a business, what would we do with our product right now?
Close.
Well, we might close, or we would, at first, we'd increase the cost of our product. We'd raise the price. But we can't raise our price. The only way we can raise our price is a levy. And if anybody, I'll challenge anyone in this community, those of you out there, there's a few of you out there I know that I'd love to have a debate with, and you know who I'm talking to. We are not misspending our money. We are not being loosey-goosey. We are not being fiscally irresponsible. These numbers show, with beyond a doubt, the quandary public schools are in. And did the decision of the county commissioners really cause this? No, but they exacerbated it. They sped it. And all for what? So you can have 16 extra bucks in your pocket a month. So, cost savings, what have we been doing? We should be responsible for trying to maintain our costs and tell you about it, right? We have that obligation. The Gould School Board has that obligation. The administration has that obligation. So, without going through each one of these, and I have the data to back up each one of these are all the things in the area of cost containment that we have done over the year to try and cut our expenditures. And we've saved 1.6 million doing that. So when we get the money, when we have money sitting in the bank, our cash reserves, which we're running out of, which is going to hurt us even more, we don't just leave it in a savings account. We invest it. Those are our two main places we invest through: Red Tree Investment and Star Ohio. Star Ohio is a state program. Red Tree is a private investor. And this is how much money we've earned from July to January. $814,000. So when you go back and think about how that revenue rose a little bit, most of it's our own investments, not the state. We are using your money prudently, and I know that I speak for Chris and the board when I say this. When I sign purchase orders, when we do things, I am very much thinking, this is my money. This is how I run my house. I don't spend it like it's your money. So, just some important dates that are coming up, and some additional information you need, but I wanted this to just be about the general fund so it's not confusing. But in April, we'll come back, and again, I love Mike Patrizzi. He's the brains of our operation. I'm the marionette. He's the one pulling the strings. Don't think anything other than that. So, we're going to come back with that 030 account and give you some actuals and forecasts for that. Now, the 030 account is where we put the money from the county consortium for
Special financing district.
Yeah, so, and that is property tax. It's not considered general fund, but I don't want to mislead the board or the community. We use it kind of like general fund. So I think it's important for you to understand where that's tracking, because if we lost that money, those people would have to transfer back into the general fund. And that would make a substantial impact on our general fund. So we'll give you just a mini 5-year forecast of that. We'll look at our PI account because we got a lot of decisions to make, right? We're going to get a GMP here soon on Buckeye. We're going to be probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40% of that PI money tied up in one expenditure, which is Buckeye. Well, not just, yeah, Buckeye, just Buckeye. So I'm comfortable with that, but I will tell you that I'm not comfortable with tying up long-term any more PI money. We can't tie up any more PI money because we're sitting in a building that should have been replaced already, quite frankly. So the costs of maintaining this building, I know that Rich and his team really do a fabulous job. And across the way over here where central office is, the men were tortured by a toilet that wouldn't flush anything. And he had his guys come and put a new toilet in, and it's got a heated seat, it lights up, and it's got a bidet. I didn't even know what a bidet was. Now I do. Now I know. So If you can't find me in my office, just knock on the door. That's where I'll be. But anyway, they do a really good job, but we can't tie up any more money. We can't tie up any more money in PI. PI is not the answer, other than keeping our building, our duct tape building duct taped. Then we're not required to give an end of the year forecast. The next one would be in October, but we're gonna come back and give you another forecast in May, like we have historically done. I think it's important because we're gonna get end of year numbers, all of those things. And then you're gonna get a very condensed timeline because of legislative changes, but we have to do appropriations or the budget. I don't know why they don't call it just the budget. Appropriations is fancy, I guess. You probably know, but don't answer it. Don't you? If you don't know, okay, good.
I won't answer.
But anyway, that'll be in July, and then we made a lot of changes to how we're building our budgets. I don't think it was that painful.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, you better get done, woman. I'm not putting up with that. No, we're kind of all working together to do a process that hasn't been done here, at least the way we're doing it, as far as I know. And again, that's no shade on past administration. It's just different. But I think it's really important that if we can shave $500,000 off our yearly expenditures just by streamlining busing for special ed students or software or whatever it might be, and I think we can, I think we will get a little low-hanging fruit there, then I can come back in May, build that into the forecast, and then easily do our appropriations, which should be a snap. And we'll get better and better at it over the few years as everybody understands it. And the other piece that's important to note is sometimes we've been coding some of our expenditures, not necessarily under the right area. So that's throwing off our historical look back, because we think, for example, there was X amount spent on paper, for example, when in fact it really wasn't. Maybe it was more, maybe it was less. So it'll just help us tighten things up and streamline our processes and hopefully save a little bit of money. But I hope that wasn't too much or too overwhelming, but it's really important. And then on March 6th, we're going to take some time to really try to delve into understanding how all this works. Any questions?
No, just so the board knows, I've asked Dr. Thompson and Dr. Attino, like when they're doing things that maybe will help us understand what they're looking at to try to cut costs or what they're considering, to make sure that they do highlight that for us in the Friday packet, because I think that's very important as we go into making some of these decisions. But I think what I've heard from them is there's not a ton that we can.
There's not.
We can cut. So.
What I think we need to do, and what I am confident we want to be able to say straight-faced without any hesitation, we've done all we can do to provide a solid education and opportunities for kids and do it as cost-effectively as we can. Now, you're not hearing me advocate for cutting a lot of staff. We don't have staff to cut. I mean, there's just not staff to cut. So we already have some elementary schools that have some classes that are kind of high in student-to-teacher ratios already. So there's not a lot of room there to do that. But we need to be able. But we do think Camille is. She's like super great trained from her days in another school district by some dynamic leader who trained her. I don't know who that was. But anyway. What you look at me like that for? It's humor, woman. It's humor. But anyway, she's found some stuff that some areas where we think we can grab a little bit of money. Again, is it going to wipe out $4.4 million? No. But the other thing I would ask anyone who's listening to this, that that decision by the county commissioners has to be voted on by those 3 commissioners every year. Now, in the forecast, I assume they do it. But I think it's really important if we, if we can get some advocacy on our part and for those county commissioners to really understand the impact that, and it's not just us, it's Mentor, it's Willoughby Eastlake, it's Kirtland, it's everyone.
It was devastating to Madison.
Yes. And again, also we can save $16 a month. So, thank you.
I'd like to point out 2 important things. One, the point you made about administrative costs, which essentially is 7 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
So when you see Facebook warriors saying that we need to cut administrative costs, we're only spending 7 cents on the dollar for administration. And Ms. Grassi alluded to this, but Mr. Olesic showcased the 2 of us earlier this week that graph that shows you how many custodians and maintenance you're supposed to have per square feet of school property. In some cases, we're operating at 50% of that, and yet still running an efficient system where the schools are clean and they're refreshed every night after big events. And we're doing that all at their peril in a way, because they're the ones who have the stress, but they're doing it in such a respectful way and an effective way. And those are 2 really important parts that I hope that if some of you see things online, just giving you some bullets, if you will, to counteract some of those responses. But 7 cents on the dollar is pretty minimal in my point of view.
And I think something else is sometimes those costs for administration is brought in other ways, like through the ESC, I think, was one of those, and we don't do that.
We are very
administration
transparent.
is right here.
Our
And
administrators are our administrators. They are not purchase services or anything else. We've been and
So
we are trying to continue to bring as many employees in and make them our own than contracting services, because it's better.
Now, when you met with the local budget commission, do they have any influence with the commissioners that made this decision? I don't know.
I would think they have influence.
They have some
I mean,
influence.
they don't certainly have any authority,
Yeah.
but I gotta believe they have influence.
Yeah, I think too, one of the things that you hear from a school standpoint is consolidate, you have too many schools and all that, and we have consolidated some. One of the things that Dr. Zern brought up in the presentation last night is, in the analysis that he did, consolidation for the first year, yes, there's a savings. The second year, it actually costs more. So it's a temporary savings, but then does lead to more. So I think that's a study that really you want, to look and investigate and see what that is out. Plus, you lose local control, and I think that's a big thing that we've been, kind of set on. What does that local control look like? So we share services as much as we can with districts, and that are financially beneficial to us. We are looking to always partner in different ways to bring in revenue that brings us to a positive, and it's a win-win if we can bring in more revenue and access more services at the same time. We are always looking to try to have some of those deals that come up with it, and we're continuing to form new partners and continuing to look and see what can that be to the benefit. So, and we're not alone in this. There are other districts who are looking as well to kind of see what some of those things are from that standpoint.
And with it, you called for the advocacy, but, it does involve every Lake County school district, and most of them are going on the ballot.
We are,
So-
yes, we are not alone in all of that. We are actually, I would say, it's fair to say that we are in a better place. Mentor is on the ballot this spring. Willoughby Eastlake was on, then they pulled it off, and now they're going on in November.
but they're looking at possibly combining schools.
Yes, they're looking at a number of different changes for them. Fairport's the one they're pretty much the anomaly. Madison just made a drastic list of cuts, as well as they will be on the ballot regardless of where they are. Perry has the power plant. However, they're not as flush as they used to be.
So
Nowhere
what you're
near.
seeing in
Yeah.
Madison, I think, is a reaction to their plan of correction that they have to submit, which is where we're gonna be. And so in looking at the forecast, and I looked at all the line items and whatever, I do analysis and take a look at some percentages and whatever, and if people look at that, I just want to bring to light that our benefits line is almost 60% of our wages line, but I don't think people realize that we've got millions of dollars in other funds, and I've said this before, we only focus on the general fund when we do the 5-year forecast, but we have state grants, we have federal grants. Federal grants, I think, are accounting for almost $2 million of wages that are being paid to staff, that if those federal dollars get reduced, that goes back into your
Especially in her
general fund,
department.
right? You have food service, which pays for itself, and those staff are being paid out of the food service department. You have latchkey.
Mr. Grassi, food service not only pays for itself, but they are creative enough to pay for other
Right.
projects.
They
that
pay for
we
some of
try
the
to
things-
use them
Correct.
for all kinds of things.
We have student advised funds, we have athletic funds. It doesn't include the PI fund at all, which is collecting property tax dollars, but we can't have wages out of that account. We have the joint financing district funds, which you said and
About
alluded to.
$3
that-
million.
And so if we had to absorb those dollars back into the general fund, again, we're looking at about $5 million in salaries, but all the benefits are in the general fund.
All
And
benefits
so,
are, yeah.
so at
So
first
skewed.
it looked really skewed, and I was like, wow, what's in there? Like, what kind of benefits does this district have? I want to come work here. But then I started to think about all the other funds. So it would be helpful for people to remember that there's a lot of other things that we are not talking about here when we talk about the general fund, but also in the fact that we're going to have to do a plan of correction. And I would prefer, I know that we say we're running really, really lean and that we don't want to make cuts and we don't want to do these things, but I think we have got to have a plan that says what those are going to look like in the case, because we went 2009, 10, 11, 12, then we shifted gears and said, oh, let's do buildings. So that was 15, 16, 17, and we didn't go back on the ballot till 2018, I think, and we made just a tremendous amount of cuts. It was not pretty, but some of them got us through to the other side, and we actually came out the other side, I think, actually better, more efficient. We thought outside the box and did different things, but I feel like we need to get there, and if we're gonna start, we're approving this as a forecast, and we know that we're gonna be without dollars
We can start.
within 2 years. I would suggest that we actually start talking about what does that look like, because chances are that it's not going to pass the first time. That's just my assumption based on prior experience and where the community is right now with property taxes.
I'm keeping hope alive.
Well, but I
We
believe,
could,
I
we
mean,
could
I
come up
think,
with some, proactive measures, some tiered measures, and some,
Right. like, this is the timing of these things. These are things that we are gonna have to look at, that if we're going to have to cut things, that these are the prioritized ones. These would be the things that would go first, and then these things would go next, and depending on how far down you get into that deficit, I think we have to think about it, and if we wait too long, then there's no time to appropriately plan for that, and I feel like we should be doing that by the time we have to approve the appropriations for next year. We really need to think about that, because we've got 1 year.
And it's somewhat of a moving target because we don't know what's going to happen even with the next legislative actions, and there's, things that are going to change, and we're also gonna know the result of what other districts are doing, and will the commissioners reconsider? I mean, there's just so many things that all it does is postpone until there's a major overhaul of how we fund our schools.
I would also say, speaking to benefits, one thing that's not showing up, because it's not a savings, it's just not as big, is when we left the consortium to go on our own from a benefit standpoint, we're not seeing a savings by any means. Our benefit cost rose 11%. However, the year prior, it rose 22%, plus we had an additional premium added on at that time. So we saw a significant increase in benefit costs by doing that. This year, had we remained in the consortium, we were looking at a 20% increase instead of a 9% increase. So is it a savings? Well, no, because we're still spending money, but it's not, we spent less, and that's
A lot
good.
less.
And I think that's, in going forward, the relationships we have with our staff and our unions are really they understand. And I think it's because they lived through the lean years.
Yep.
And so they understand, part of it, and they are really collaborative in this process. And when we mentioned that we are exploring going on our own, they were very open to it. They were very much, let's look at it. They're open to new plan types and new opportunities, and all of that. So I think, where, again, I'm not saying that healthcare is going to be flatlined. It's not. But I think if the goal is if we can keep the percentage that the increase to forecasted predictions, at least then again we can plan for that. And that's the biggest thing for all of us is how do we plan for this moving forward.
And it's been my experience that the way businesses are doing that is by reducing benefits, and they flatline their cost, or they see a lower percentage increase, but you've got to give something up. So again, I'm hoping that by the time that we come together in May and you guys do this May forecast update, that we have a list of prioritized, well, these are areas that that we have to look at, that we can look at. These are places that we can reduce if this is what we want our district to look like, right? I feel like we need to go there.
Right. I think part of what we can do is I think a helpful exercise we can have a discussion about but doing a staffing audit, for example, an independent staffing audit. The state will do that for us, but we can do it, quite frankly, pretty effectively on our own with part of the software that we purchased, which is that piece of the software is called the analytics section of that software, and we can pull up whatever school district you want to pull up and compare staffing to student-teacher ratios, how many secretaries do you have, how many, across the gamut, to get an idea of where we are. But I can tell you this: 30 teachers, just random number, 30 teachers is probably somewhere in the range of about $3.2 million, probably somewhere in there. 30, and it doesn't even get you out of the hole. Yeah. So I do agree with you 100%, Mrs. Grassi, that we need to look at we need a worst case scenario ourselves as well. But I can tell you that it's just next year when we have to put together that financial recovery plan, it's going to be tough without a levy to even begin to show that we're digging our way out of that deficit.
The first point in the plan of correction is always we're going to pass a levy. We're going to put
Well,
a levy
yeah,
on
of
the
course,
ballot.
of
That's
course.
always the first thing
Of
that's
course.
in there. But even some of the things, if we start thinking about them, you may say these would be possible, but there may be some that you come up with and you say we can do these anyway. That will
That's
get us
the
right.
low-hanging
That will
fruit.
get us out of some of that, and it will at least make it look better.
Well, that is what we're doing right now. My personal assessment on what we've seen so far, new guy, it's not in staffing. There's just not a lot of, like I don't even have a secretary. I haven't had a secretary, my own secretary, for 25 years. I don't know I get lost, I need someone holding my hand telling me what time to be at the next meeting. So it's been an adjustment, and we're adjusting. We're doing it okay. He's operating without an assistant superintendent. Maybe that'll change. But there's a lot of holes already in our staffing, and I agree. We got to pick off. There isn't a lot of low-hanging fruit, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
No, but I guess I'm also trying to say that while we look at some of that analytical data from other districts and we can compare, that's great and fine, but we as a district have to figure out what we want to look like regardless of what that data tells us.
I agree.
Right? And so
agree.
we have to find out as a community what we want to accept and what level we as a board decide that we want to be at, and I think that's conversation we have to have
Agreed.
sooner rather than later, and it's time because
Yeah.
we're there.
Yeah, and I think the other piece of all this that's hard, very difficult to quantify, as you start to make these reductions, even just planning for said reductions, you don't know what unintended consequence that brings. Families leaving in fear of what could be coming. So I think we have to be really cautious about, my personal feeling is run as lean as we can, effectively as we can, go to the voters, be transparent, honest, and ask them to help us. And if they tell us no, well then now it's we're having a different conversation. But I really do, I believe Riverside's gonna pass our levy on the first go.
So
I believe that.
if we were gonna be on the ballot, for example, and I'm not telling the public that we are gonna be on the ballot, I'm just asking a question. If you were gonna do that in November and you were trying to time out when this happens, if we decide November would be a first attempt, when do we have to start passing? That's
I
June,
will
right?
get, on March 6th, I'll backwards plan, you'll see it all backwards planned out from
He's gonna have a
boom, 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 you'll see it. And I'll give you a couple of options
'Cause it's-
also
yeah,
of
it's-
how
it's
much
2 votes and
millage.
whatever, yeah, that would be great.
If you want to go income tax, we'll have it there for you.
There's a lot of different strategies now that communities are going with, and I think that's the big, that makes it even more challenging, where it used to always just be, it's a property tax levy, and now there are other avenues, and there's combined, and there's a number of different things. So I think it is a valid discussion and conversation as to which way we want to go.
Right, and again, it might not be November, maybe it will be May, who knows, but
Yeah.
it's
But I
coming
think-
at some point, and
I would agree. I think those are conversations that we absolutely have to have and really look at what it, like cost benefit analysis
Yeah.
almost to it
Okay.
all.
And they're gonna start, again, the beginning will start on the 6th, as part of our working
Yeah.
session,
Yeah.
or as our retreat.
can't wait.
Super. I have balloons for you.
I'm not gonna say. All right, next is public participation. So anyone wishing to address the Board of Education will be recognized by the board president. Speakers are requested to speak from the podium. Today we do not have a podium, so from your seat. Identify themselves and their topic. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Yes, please.
I'm Katie Murray. I'm a parent of 2 elementary school children at Parkside Elementary. I'm coming to talk to you guys about our staffing situation, of what I know about it, just so that as a new board, you guys are aware. So first off, I want to thank everybody for stepping up and being a part of our board, and for all the staff and everybody who's part of the Riverside District. You guys make it a great district. I'm happy to be here. I recently moved here from South Carolina. My family and I, we had a choice of where we were going to move. I did a ton of research. I'm one of these people. I'm really annoying. I know it. But I looked up reviews. I looked up what the school offered. I looked up about the sports. I looked up about teachers. I did everything. And we picked this area. We picked a home here. And I cannot begin to explain how much we have found our community, because we don't have family here. Our family's, my husband's from the UK, his family's still over there, my family's across the US. So we found that community and we found our people here, and we're so grateful for it. I want to speak specifically about the rising 3rd grade and the rising 4th grade class for next year. My son is in the 2nd grade, my daughter's in kindergarten. So last year at the May 19th PTO meeting, the superintendent came and he shared what his state of the schools was, and it was a great message. We learned a lot about what was going on, but at that meeting we also found out that in our 3rd grade, of our 4 teachers, we went down to 3 teachers. So it was a big shock to myself to hear that, as well as I guess a lot of the 3rd grade parents had been concerned and started to hear that this was going to be happening. So to hear that this was actually taking place at the end of the school year, and those class sizes would be growing at such a pivotal year for our children, it was just a lot. So I wanted to come up today so that I could speak to you guys, because I don't want to get blindsided again at the end of this school year, where we're finding out either we're not going to be hiring anyone new, or that we're going to continue with the class sizes that we have. Part of what makes Parkside so wonderful is our amazing teachers and the staff and everybody who's there. We have an exceptional 4.5, exceeding the state ratings, and that's because of the people that we have. And I know that, I recognize that. Due to losing one of those third grade teachers last year, the class sizes are now 30, 29, and 28 for the 3 remaining classes that they have. Now those are with the unit students, so I'm going to be completely transparent. So let me see what my numbers are. Like I said, I've done a lot of research here. So with the general education classes, there's 28, 27, and 26. Sorry, can I keep going?
3 minutes per person. So what I would love, I believe Dr. Tino had reached out. Did you have a chance?
Yep, so I was going to get to that point.
Yeah.
So he did reach out to me. I reached out to Mr. Beers and Mr. Aldino, and I let them know this. My big concern again is it's a pivotal year. With my student, with his class size, we have 89 students in that 2nd grade class. There's 4 teachers right now. Next year, that means that we would have 30 kids in each of those classes, not including anyone who's going to be moving into our district.
So
And
I very much apologize, but I do have to keep it to 3 minutes because if I don't, so I do apologize.
okay.
Thank you. Is there, yes?
I'm Missy Dawson. I also have a student at Parkside, a student in 8th grade at Riverside. To kind of go off of what Katie said, same concern, just large class sizes. And I know that you guys say the unit kids aren't in the classes. I'm at the school quite often. I've been on the PTO for 4 years, and they're constantly in the classes. And with that being said, it's just an extra person in the room with these kids that have special needs. Just making it hard for the kids to not be distracted, lots of kids. I get that, the funds aren't there, but my question is, and I don't know if you can answer this right away, what is the limit? When are you guys gonna, say, okay, enough is enough, we need to add another teacher?
Okay, so I don't think we can answer that, but we will definitely take
Yes.
the question and get back to you.
And then the other concern is, like you guys said, a lot of people leaving, going to private schools, and I know that's a lot of talks right now. People don't want 30 kids in the class, and they're starting to talk. Should we go elsewhere? Should we look at private schools? Things like that, just to consider, as you guys talked about, ed choice and all those kind of things. But it's just a major concern at Parkside, and I don't know what the other schools are either. I know Riverview is like 22, but as far as Melridge of Buckeye and the redistricting, I don't know if that would be something that can be done to help, lower class sizes. But that's.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right. Thank you. All right, first up is our consent agenda for finance and audit.
Motion to approve items listed A through L on the finance audit consent agenda as recommended by the treasurer. Can I get a motion?
You were the motion, you
Oh,
were second.
Can I get a second, sorry?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just
Yes.
want to thank, for the donations. We have $150 from Margaret Kimball to the 7th grade nutrition services balance. If people are not aware, you can actually donate to the nutrition services department to pay, for kids who don't have funds on their lunch account. So I think that's always awesome when people do that.
I would like to just make one point. Item K3, we are paying purely out of a legal obligation. We don't have much of a choice. We're paying $36,883 in legal fees to a law firm that ended up being purely a social experiment, really. That lasted about a month. And I just wanted to make the public aware of that. Again, this current board has a legal obligation to pay it, but I just wanted to make you all aware that it is on here, and not much we can do about it, but certainly worth noting.
Dr. Thompson, would you like to read the roll?
Yes.
Mrs. Krasinski.
Aye.
Mr. Byers.
Aye.
Mrs. Grassi.
Aye.
Ms. Brewster.
Aye.
Mr. Audino.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
That brings us to our consent agenda for personnel.
Motion to approve items listed A through H on the personal consent agenda as recommended. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I would just like to congratulate the retirements that are listed on our agenda. We have Sharon Fields, our English language arts teacher at the Riverside campus.
And Jennifer Cooper, and our teacher.
That's a resignation.
That's a resignation.
That's a resignation. Okay, when's a retirement?
And we have Michelle Ricci, a special needs assistant as well, retiring. Right. Some of these folks have been here for so long, it's really awesome. Not that they're retiring, but it's awesome to recognize them on their retirement, so.
Dr. Thompson?
Mr. Byers.
Aye.
Mrs. Grassi.
Aye.
Ms. Brewster.
Aye.
Mr. Audino.
Aye.
Mrs. Krasinski.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
That brings us to our consent agenda for curriculum and programming.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the items listed A through F on the curriculum and program consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Discussion?
It's latchkey camp time again. on the
Actually
agenda.
got delayed. The sign up got delayed by till tomorrow.
We were talking about camping out at 4:30
And I just-
Yes,
Again,
because of the snow and all of
That
that.
is one of those
It was-
things that I always tell Mrs. Bielko that if I could come to Latchkey Camp, I would. It's really a great bargain for the money. They do so many things, so sign up for Latchkey Camp.
That's an amazing.
It's really
And
awesome.
that's being held at Parkside?
It is held at Parkside this year.
Okay, because
Yes.
in the past it was at Riverview.
It was, and they held it at Parkside last year because of the transportation, and found that because the buildings are built in mirror of each other, actually the setup at Parkside works better than Riverview because they can see kind of all areas from one spot.
Okay.
And that's the reason. It's a student safety issue.
Dr. Thompson?
Mrs. Krasinski.
Aye.
Mr. Audino.
Aye.
Mrs. Grassi.
Aye.
Ms. Brewster.
Aye.
Mr. Byers.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, that brings us to consent agenda for buildings and grounds and operations.
Sure, we have a motion to approve the items listed on the Buildings and Grounds consent agenda and is recommended by the superintendent, item A. Can I get a second?
A second.
That is our COPS lease purchase resolution. Again, it is not an authorization to go and sell bonds. It's just the authorization to merge everything so that we only have one bond issue when the time comes. So, just to clarify. No discussion? Then let's call the roll, please.
Mrs. Grassi.
Aye.
Ms. Brewster.
Aye.
Mr. Audino.
Aye.
Mr. Byers.
Aye.
Mrs. Krasinski.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, we have a resolution to approve a revision to the 2026-2027 school calendar. Can I get a second?
Second.
And,
We can't count. That's
Okay.
what it comes down. This, because this is next year, yeah, right? Our typical spring break falls over the Easter holiday, and typically it's a Good Friday and the Monday after, they count as, Good Friday counts as a paid vacation day. And since it worked its way into it this year, we were actually extended the school year by a day, by over a day for contracted, for our teachers, so we had to back it off by a day. So that's really, our seniors get out one day earlier, they get out on a Wednesday.
I don't think anyone's gonna
So
complain.
we look at when we put graduation, probably graduation will be the Tuesday of that year. So we're doing that's exciting.
I'll have a graduate
On a Tuesday.
on a Tuesday. Any discussion, any other discussion? All right, can you call the roll?
Mr. Krasinski.
Aye.
Mr. Byers.
Aye.
Mrs. Grassi.
Aye.
Ms. Brewster?
Aye.
Mr. Audino?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Wonderful. Next, we have the 2027, 2028 school calendar discussion. So is there anything that we should?
So we can count on this one, and this one is a hearing, so we post this out there, we open it for comment. It models the rest of our calendar path as we've gone. Spring break's the last week of March. First semester ends at the winter break, second semester ends right around Memorial Day as we best can. It's a hearing, the actual vote will be in April, because you have to give 30 days.
Right, and where will it be posted again?
It's posted on our website, correct? It will be,
It has not been yet.
but it will be.
Right, and the PD days, I was looking at both calendars, are pretty consistent at the time, and that works out best.
We actually, yeah, well, we shifted, so in 27, 28, we do have a shifted PD day, and we can easily shift those as well. We shifted the PD days to coincide with the end of the quarter in the best cases possible, so they kind of work there.
Okay.
So that and looking at, will they be just strictly PD days, or can we combine and do PD records days? Against some of our initiatives like MTSS and all that, which does take some meeting time, which is a little more challenging to do when students are in session. But
Okay.
Right. Also, we have the first reading of our new and revised board policy on the agenda. There's no action for that tonight.
there's no action, that will be on the March to approve.
Correct. That brings us to Board of Education updates. Do we have any updates?
I just, again, want to congratulate Jenny Cavell on her win. She will be eligible to be the National VFW High School Teacher of the Year as a result. And so we wish her the best of luck in that. And then I also wanted to extend thanks to the folks who put on the Valentine's Day dance for allowing the agency that I work for to have some of our folks come and participate in that as well. And they came and provided some food service because we do that as part of our vocational training programs. And so that was really nice, and they just really, really enjoy it. So thanks for allowing them to come.
Okay.
And I just wanted to thank Nick for all the new pictures. I guess you're the one that put them up?
I did.
Yeah, they look great. Just updating, some of the things that
I took them too.
we've
Took
done
'em,
recently, including our softball team.
And it's
Did
funny.
you notice that
I
they're
noticed them right
almost
away.
level? Not 100%.
Oh,
but
yeah,
almost
you
level.
have that issue.
When did you put those up? We talked about that, didn't we?
Monday afternoon.
Yeah, because I swear I
They
noticed
do
them right
look good,
away.
though,
Yeah.
don't they?
Well, the
So
the
what are they?
I
softball
think it
one
was
really
the
stands
softball
out.
one because
yeah.
it was red, and
Yeah.
then I was like,
That
"What
one
the? I
stands
don't
out.
think I've seen that one before." So.
Right.
No.
I really didn't think anyone would notice.
Oh, well, there you go.
I noticed. I
Yeah.
wish they were stricter.
Well, thank you. And then I also wanted to thank the administration for the board recognition of all of us, and thank you for the vests and the t-shirts, so thank you.
Student design, and turned out great.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they did a great job.
They
And they fit well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's my
Yeah.
youth medium fits perfectly.
yeah.
Well, I was supposed to get one, but
Yeah.
somebody
I wore
blocked
a
me
medium
over there.
as a 7-year-old.
Okay, and we were waiting to
you.
hear a confirmation on the March 6th, the time and place. Do you?
I thought a calendar invite went out, didn't it?
Did we sound like, it's at the Woods, and
Yeah,
it
it's-
starts at
it's in
8:30.
It is.
Yeah, there's a
Well,
calendar
yeah.
invite out
And
there.
actually, that needs to change. I thought I must not have hit save, that's a Google habit. The next meeting updates, we do not have curriculum and programming, but on the 6th, but we do have the retreat. And that starts at 8:30.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, we
should-
canceled.
We did. We decided not to do it so that you guys could do the strategic planning conversations first, and then we would meet after that. We thought, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Well, that and Marlo's son is out, so I have to help set up.
What time is that over?
Oh, for God.
3:30? We have a run until 3:30. the retreat.
Right, so we've
Okay,
moved on to
yeah,
the,
I had one more thing, sorry. I know we talked about, when we were talking about increasing the, budget for the, Buckeye project, just, surveying in some way, shape, or form the Buckeye Melridge parents. Has there been any feedback? Did we send anything?
We will, we're getting on that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, and then some kind of traffic study, but I don't know if that's something the people we employ do it.
I believe TDA is working
They're
on that
doing
one.
it,
Yes.
okay. I just wanted to check those boxes.
Right, so next meeting announcements, we do have our board retreat on March 6, 2026 at 8:30 a.m. We have Finance and Personnel Committee meeting March 10, 2026 at 7 a.m. And our next Board of Education meeting is March 12th, a little bit early due to the holidays, and that's at 6 p.m. At this time, we will adjourn to executive session. So the Riverside Local School District Board of Education hereby recesses into an executive session for the purposes of 1, considering the appointment, employment, discipline, and compensation of public employees under revised code 121.22 G1, and 2, conferring with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are the subject of pending or imminent action, court action under revised code 121.22 G3, and 3, details of building security protocols. Upon conclusion of this executive session, the board president shall gavel the board back into open session at this location. All matters discussed in these executive sessions are designated to the public officials and employees as confidential pursuant to revised code 102.03B. Because of the status of the proceedings and/or the circumstances under which the information will be received, in preserving its confidentiality is necessary to the proper conduct of government business. Can I get a second?
I'll second. At least it's not one sentence anymore, remember? Like,
Okay, can I get roll, please?
Mr. Audino,
Aye.
Mr. Byers,
Aye.
Ms. Brewster,
Aye.
Mrs. Krasinski,
Aye.
Mrs. Grassi.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0